for actually going under the table.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you, everybody, and welcome to the Yarmouth Select Board meeting of March 3rd, 2026. If we could please all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And I'd like to have, ask for a quick moment of silence to think about all of our service members that are serving in harm's way today and in the days past and the days to come. Thank you very much for that. Okay, we are going to begin with announcements. I will begin with announcements by saying during the storm, we had declared a state of emergency, and at this time, I'd like to declare that the emergency is over. So whatever paperwork we need to sign, the acuteness of the issue, and hopefully the state will be able to help us with some funding at some point based on that declaration, but I don't know what else you need, Bob, for that. It's just a declaration of I think the chair of the select board, so I do declare that the emergency is over. Also, I'd like to just take a moment to thank all of our public safety people for all that they did during the storm, including our dispatchers and our emergency operations and our DPW, our plow drivers, everybody that had anything to do with it. It was a huge undertaking, and I just personally would like to thank them. I know under town administrator items, we'll have an opportunity to get a brief update from the town administrator on that, and probably have some type of after-action discussion here at this board at some point in time when we're ready. But I don't think it should go without saying that they worked very many long, hard hours, days even, some of them without sleep, and we're very grateful, and we're also very grateful that the majority of our people have their power back. Mark and I know, spent some time over at the shelter, and so there's a wide variety of people there that we have to also recognize, and at some point in time, hopefully we can give them a formal recognition. But there were people from the county. Officer Pascarosa was instrumental in coordinating it, Dr. Smith, and food service workers, our school nurses, the National Guard was there. I saw environmental police, state police, police officers from all around the region. So I also want to make sure that we give a huge thanks to all of them. There were about 275 people, Bob said, at the height of the storm, which was a very, very busy shelter. And, having a place to go is for some people is very, very difficult for them to leave their home, especially when they have pets. And we were fortunate that they allowed pets. So.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think among the town employees that I would also like to single out are the Yarmouth Fire Department, the EMTs, as well as the police department. While we were at the shelter, we heard from a number of residents who literally could not have gotten to the shelter, but for being literally helped out of their homes physically because they were snowed in, but for the police and for the fire department. It was amazing to see.
The Cape Cod RTA.
The RTA provided transportation, was able to help bring people there.
And the Family Table Collaborative, who provided food. It was just
provided thousands of meals, so they did an incredible job. It was clearly a town effort, a county effort, really a Cape Cod effort. Just about everybody from every corner of life pitched in. But the stories from our own residents thanking our own employees in the town and our police and fire, those are just wonderful stories to hear. So I agree. Everyone deserves a huge kudos for all their help and support getting us through this.
Great. Is there anybody else who has any announcements? Liz?
No, thank you.
Joyce?
I'd just like to say thank you to everyone, including community members. It was a little bit like that Christmas time spirit. And wouldn't it be great if Yarmouth were like that 365 days a year?
Dorcas, you have any announcements?
Just also want to extend my thanks. It was generally what you would hear of, it takes a village to raise a child, well, it takes a town to raise a town. And they did a great job. Thank you.
Great. Mark, you have any other announcements?
That was it, thank you.
Bob, you have any announcements?
No additional announcements.
Okay, let's go to public comment. Okay, we have some people on Zoom that we will take first. I see some hands raised. No, thank you. I do, though. All right, I see a Zoom user. Zoom user, please recognize yourself and identify yourself for the record.
Yes, Madam Chair. Joe Glenn from the Irish Riviera on Route 28 in the old Irish Village on the parade route. Not far. Now you're making declarations. Maybe you can declare the Nantucket Sound for the weekend, south of Yarmouth Sound or something. But I just wanted to make some clarifications about, seems like a long time ago, we had discussions about the regional agreement and the composition of the DY school committee. And I had made a reference to a 10-member board only because it's the simple math to figure out what 7 out of 10 is, and that was the original composition of the board of the school committee and in the regional agreement, which we were talking about. Everyone knows the Yarmouth assessment is near 70%. So that would be 7 out of 10. And that's what I was going with. I don't care if the breakdown is 6 of 9 for 66%, but it has to be fair. It's about fairness and equity. We hear that all the time. And accuracy. We're talking about the enrollment because that goes to our assessment that you guys have to do the tough decisions about with your budget. So even 5 out of 8 is 62%. It's getting away significantly from where we know the average enrollment is in the assessment of what we pay. And we think that, the composition of the board should be fair. But this notion of rounding down from 4.5 people to 4 and rounding from just over 2.5% down to 2 is just not fair out of 7 members. And it's not in the spirit of the RA. And the catch here is that the vote of the school committee to make any, to even hear, as we've seen, discussions about the fairness of the regional agreements and getting down to fixing any inequalities or anything in the regional agreement, it first has to start with a vote of the school committee that is the composition isn't broken down properly. So Yarmouth is unfairly taxed without representation, and it's sometimes overused, but we're assessed without representation. But speaking of that, we haven't been represented, and hopefully, or I think guaranteed, we're going to have better representation, because anything's better than zero representation in the first Barnstable district. And that goes to, we've had no one arguing defending the school committee or the district or the town up at the State House where all that money's coming from. I don't know if we're getting any money. You just referenced from the if the district gets any money for the shelter, but whatever monies that we should be getting, we need representation of that, and that's what it goes to. But the other thing about the budget, which you're going to have to address, I mean, I don't think 1.5 million is going to fly. I think the sweet spot is usually around 500,000 to 800,000, and that's, with years of gaps where there's no override or debt exclusion. So I think it's going to be a tough sell for you guys. Good luck with it. But the other thing is the excess and deficiencies, which I mentioned, because people don't understand it. We don't take we can't take money from deficiencies. It's all about projections. So the school, the district makes a projection to what they think we're going to get back from the state. If the projection is wrong, it's good to have a little cushion, okay? But if it's wrong by $1 million and the town of Yarmouth has given an override of $1 million and it goes into the excess, well, Yarmouth has given that money. The taxpayers of Yarmouth has given that in the assessment of $1 million. Well, guess what? We don't get that back, because if it goes to the E&D, we don't get 70% of that back. It could be 100% if the school committee and the district decides we're going to fix something in a building for $1 million in Dennis. Well, 100% or $1 million could go to that. I think that it should be in the regional agreement that any of the excess and deficiencies should go back proportionately to the towns, the 70% back to the towns. They should have a cushion for if anything goes wrong and put it in the capital budget. But that's something that's been overlooked for a long time. So just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. Good luck with the budget. If there's any questions that anybody needs to know from me, I'm certainly happy to help. But thanks for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you, Joe. Cheryl?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I apologize if there's a barking dog in the background. Anyway, first of all, I did want to come on here tonight and say a big thank you to the town for the updates that we got during the blizzard, and also a special thank you to our first responders, our DPW crews, and all the utility workers who worked around the clock to keep residents safe and restore power. I think everyone really did an outstanding job, and I really appreciate it. Sorry, there's the dog. Secondly, I'm here tonight because I wanted to comment on the transfer tax that was recently approved by the Cape Cod Assembly of Delegates. A couple of weeks ago, I attended that meeting via Zoom, and I was deeply disappointed that the delegate for Yarmouth, Susan Warner, voted in favor of the tax. That disappointment is amplified by the fact that the measure passed by a razor-thin margin of just 51.4%, and one vote could have changed the outcome. Once again, it just feels like the voices of constituents are being ignored. Residents are already frustrated. 72% of the voters supported a state audit that has still not happened. And now we're being asked to accept yet another potential tax with no clear safeguards or transparency and no accountability of how that money will be spent. Many of us have zero confidence that these funds won't simply disappear into the bureaucratic abyss. At the assembly meeting, dozens of Cape Cod residents spoke against the tax, and only 4 spoke in favor of it. One of the 4 was Michael Holcomb, the district director of Julian Sear, the same state senator who appeared before this very board back in September to aggressively push his tax. Another supporter was Raphael Richter, and if that name sounds familiar, it should. He's the owner of Mercedes Cab, which is the company that received a zero-bid state contract related to the Healy shelters for transporting the illegal aliens. He also happens to be very close with Mr. Sear. 2 other supporters who spoke in favor of the tax were young women who shared emotional stories about struggling to live on the Cape. And while I can appreciate how difficult it is to afford a home, especially for young people, what they didn't disclose is that both of them are employed by an organization called the Community Development Partnership, a nonprofit whose mission is to create, quote, accessible and stable housing through bold systemic change, end quote. This organization stands to benefit directly from transfer tax revenue. And one other little tidbit, Mr. Richter is on the advisory council of that organization. To many residents, this does not look like grassroots support. It looks like insiders advocating for a tax that benefits their own networks, while everyday Cape Codders are left footing the bill. Quite frankly, this feels like yet another scheme to fleece taxpayers. I have zero confidence that if this tax comes before Yarmouth voters and passes, the money will not be managed transparently or in the best interest of residents. People are paying attention, and if and when this comes to town meeting, many of us will be watching closely and pushing back hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, is there anybody in the public here tonight that would like to speak? Yes, sir, please. Vita, I'll get back to you.
My name is Barry Margolin, 27 Roberta Drive, West Yarmouth. I'm the vice chair of the Yarmouth Energy Committee. We have a unanimous request of our volunteer team tonight before the board to update our name and charge. And I just wanted to let you know that I'm here on behalf of the committee if the board has any questions when that comes up.
Great. Thank you, Barry. Is there anybody else from the public? Mr. Nicanello?
Vita first, Madam Chair.
Okay, Vita.
Hello,
Hi, Vita.
okay. Is it possible to, I joined a little bit late, but just what Ms. Ball just talked about. Is it possible to get Ms. Warner to explain herself, how, on what basis she voted the way she did?
All I can say is that I sent her an email and asked her to, that she was welcome to come here and update the board and the public at any time of what's happening on the county. And I did not receive a response.
Oh, the wonderful representation, isn't it? Now, you cannot get her to come? In other
Well,
words,
we haven't
demand that she show up and explain to the
We don't
the
demand
people that
anything.
you're...
We can't demand anything. We as a board have never formally asked her. I sent her an email with my thoughts based on what she was voting on, and at the end of it, I did ask her to come, that she was welcome in public at any time to update us and the board, and the public, but as I said, there was no response,
Was
and
she-
we can't demand her to come.
I don't remember, was she elected or was she appointed when somebody stepped down?
She's an elected member at this point.
She is, okay, all right, thank you.
Mr. Nicanello?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Tom Nicanello for the record, very historic town of Yarmouth, actually 387 years old this year. I brought my 250th United States of America, so we got them beat. But anyways, just to let you know, we have, well, first of all, let me back up. I'd like to also thank everybody for the huge efforts over the course of our Hernando visit. It was remarkable. I was out there. I'm a snow fighter, and I like to go out and show my appreciation to all the snow fighters, the DPW, the private contractors, everybody from holding a shovel to a spoon. We all put it together and opened up our town. And I think we were pretty safe, too. I don't think there was any casualties. But there was sure a lot of damage. Mother Nature showed us that pruning is a good thing. With that, also I'd like to say, you probably all know in about 113 hours, there'll be a bunch of people walking down 28, and we're real excited about that. We also like to thank, from the parade committee, I've been with them over a decade now. We'd like to thank all the municipal employees, the town administration, and you folks for helping us put this on. We have over 100 participants. As you know, the weather with the storm, it may not be good for everyone, but then again, let's educate people and tell people that the town of Yarmouth has stepped up, and for 3 years now, I've been putting it on television. So if you feel unsafe coming out, there's other means to watch the parade. So if you want to stay in the comfort of your home and have your Shamrock drink, that's probably the best thing to do. But if you want to come out, we'll be happy to entertain you. So DPW has been working very hard, the police department, as you know, with all the detours lately and the details. So there are more details and detours. So we really appreciate their efforts. And we also have the staging area, which is down at Parkers River Bridge, which we all spent $6 million on that bridge. And I believe a few years ago, we took the initiative with Kyle Pedicini here about the banners. And just to let you know, there is no banners there this year. We're just kind of sad. We project our image. We go to our awards communication team has done a great job. And, we have projected our community in 5 other continents. And so this is really big for us. And whatever happened with the banners, it doesn't really matter, but I know in 2027 they'll be back. So we really appreciate that, considering this is where we host the parade, and everybody looks at our town through that lens, which is very important. So with that, like I said, 113 hours left. We want to encourage everyone to enjoy the event. It's a family fun activity. The Parades Committee, under the leadership of Chairman Desmond Keogh, has done an outstanding job. We have the Irish Olympic medal women's boxer as our Grand
wow.
Marshal. So don't think anybody's going to get away with anything, because she'll put you down. So with that, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for that update. Is there anybody else from the public? Okay, moving on to our 6:15 item. We are going to have a presentation on the short-term rental study that UMass had. Okay.
He's on Zoom. Gary's on Zoom.
Who will be doing the presentation, Bob?
Carrie Spritzer, we'd like to invite from the University of Massachusetts Donahue Center. Will be joining
Good
us.
evening.
And Carrie, I'll be advancing your slides so that the public can see them as well here. You don't have to share your screen, and so maybe
Okay.
help me walk through those.
Oh, good. So I can see which slide you're showing. Perfect. Great. And I just want to say good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. This is a project that's spanned quite some time now. I think we were scheduled to present this in the fall, and now it's almost spring. So first off, I wanted to just advance the slides and give a quick overview of the study. So the UMass Donahue Institute is based out in UMass Amherst, and we do applied research in our economic and public policy research group that I'm a part of. So we were asked by the town of Yarmouth to study the various impacts of short-term rentals on seasonal housing and seasonal housing in Yarmouth. And the goal is to provide some actionable recommendations to the town regarding, potential regulations. This involved a bunch of different tasks. We started with data collection and analysis. We conducted several key informant interviews with folks throughout the town. We looked at different short-term rental regulation scenarios, and then we created a final report that hopefully everybody has had a chance to look at. The next slide is just a quick project timeline, so you can see, we're here at the final report and presentation stage, almost over a year later. I'm gonna try to speed through because I know you guys have a packed schedule, but the flow for tonight is I'm going to talk about some of the trends overall in the town regarding population and households. I'm going to talk about just touch on some key factors regarding the housing market, the current state of short-term rentals, what we found in our qualitative interviews about the perceptions of the impacts of short-term rentals. We're going to talk about what are some of the current regulations in place, what are some potential regulations the town might want to consider, and some of the costs and benefits related to those regulations. And then we'll close out with some conclusions and recommendations. So this is the section I'm going to try to go pretty quickly through, since it's probably data that many of you are familiar with. But Yarmouth, like much of the Cape, has seen growth in its population. So over the 2000 and the COVID pandemic, like much of the Cape, the town saw a growth in both total population and also in the number of households. And this is true across the town. Here, you can see that the household income in Yarmouth has grown, but relative to the Cape and Massachusetts, income in the town is somewhat lower. And this is one of the reasons, Yarmouth has often been considered kind of one of the more affordable communities on the Cape, although obviously still out of reach for many. And you can see across communities, Yarmouth Port has, higher median household income relative to South Yarmouth and West Yarmouth. You can keep going. Now, one of the big concerns around short-term rentals is often, the perception that they're using stock that would be used by year-round renters. And throughout the state and Barnstable County, seeing, real high renter cost burden. And this is the concept that a renter, for housing to be affordable for a renter or homeowner, the idea is that you'd spend 30% or less of your income on housing costs. Unfortunately, because of the high cost of housing throughout the state and your county as well, we're seeing higher renter cost burden. And so you can see in Yarmouth, it's gone up considerably since 2018. I just want to point out these bars are representing the margin of error. So, with the census, when you get down to lower and lower sample sizes in smaller and smaller geographic areas, you'll see that the error gets larger. So we put them there just to show that there is some potential overlap in the estimates from 2018 and 2023, especially when you look at the neighborhood level. But renter cost burden now is quite high. All right. Seasonal vacancy rates are high across the Cape. In Massachusetts, they're it's well below 10%. But when we go out to Barnstable County and on the Cape, you're seeing seasonal vacancy rates of well over 30%. And while Yarmouth is slightly lower than the county average as a whole, it's still quite high. And again, that dip in the seasonal vacancy rate, it's again within the margin of error. So it's possible that from 2018 to 2023, it's stayed fairly stable. That's how we're interpreting that. But it's still nearly 1 in 3 units is seasonally vacant, meaning it could be held for personal use, or it could be a short-term rental in the community. So moving on to talk about the economy and housing market. Again, while slightly lower than Cape Cod overall, the share of housing that is seasonally vacant far exceeds that statewide average. And this is, again, kind of the next slide highlights how this has remained fairly stable over time. So, back in 1990, 30% of the units in town were seasonally vacant, and today, when we look at the data in 2023, it's right around 30%. Although you'll see the total number of units that are seasonally vacant has increased over that time, growing from just under 5,000 to 5,256. Could we go on to the next slide? So overall, the Cape and all of the town of Yarmouth have significantly lower amounts of rental housing overall. So many more owner-occupied units in the communities. So that means that, on those, for renters, they're already year-round renters, they're already, struggling to find units in a communities on the Cape. But then when we talk about short-term rentals, that puts additional pressure on those rental units as well. But that's relevant. All right, so now I'm going to get into the meat of the presentation, talking about some of the data on short-term rentals. So we triangulate several sources of data in order to understand the short-term rental market. One source of data is the Department of Revenue Registry of Lodging Operators. So short-term rental owners are required to register their units with the state's Department of Revenue. And so we were able to get that registry. Now, one thing I'll note, there is some concern that units stay on that list even if they're no longer active. Sometimes we're not sure how good the Department of Registry is for taking off units that might have been operated as a short-term rental, and then the owner decides to no longer operate it as such. So if anything, we think this estimate might be a little bit high. But overall, there were over 1,400 short-term rentals registered with the state's Department of Owner Registry. We really wanted to kind of zoom in on those units that are not owner occupied and non-exempt, meaning you can be exempt from the state tax on short-term rentals if you are operated for 14 days or less. So that blue section represents the owner-occupied units and those that are used for 14 days or less. And the thinking there was just that those types of units are less likely to kind of put a strain on the housing stock because they remain available to year-round folks who are the owner occupants. But those 1,200 units, 88% are, not owner occupied, and they're operated for over 14 days. As you can see, the units are, kind of focused in South Yarmouth and West Yarmouth, with only 13% of the units in Yarmouth Port. Now, the other source of data, if we go on to the next slide, that we use is from a tool called AirDNA. They scrape data from the common websites for short-term rentals, Airbnb, and Vrbo, or vacation rental by owners. So this allows us to kind of look at those units that are rented using those apps. And I just want to point out, obviously there are also real estate agents who are, renting out short-term rentals, and they may never appear on the apps, or folks doing, rentals through word of mouth. But this is a good picture. Kind of, we use this data to really look at, what are the rates that folks are able to charge? What's that trend over time in the rates? So on the apps, we've seen roughly around 900 units pretty steadily on, excuse me, on these apps. When the average daily rate is adjusted to show $2024, and the typical units are renting for about $350 per night in 2024. And at a rate of $350 per night, a short-term rental operator could collect the equivalent of 1 month's rent in less than 5 days during peak season. These rates are significantly higher. And then we also show here, kind of the breakdown of those units listed on these app-based rental sites. The most common size is a 3-bedroom unit, but obviously there's variation across the board. Great. We can go on to the next slide. So those are the quantitative, findings regarding some of the short-term rentals. What we wanted to do is to understand how folks in town, are perceiving the impacts of short-term rentals. Concerns about short-term rentals really depend on where you sit in the town and the economy. Year-round residents, second homeowners, hotel operators, and public sector employers and employees all have different priorities and concerns when thinking about short-term rentals. And we viewed our work as bringing this data to inform the decisions that the town has to make, but recognize that, obviously these need to be informed by local decision makers. So we talked to, individuals from the Chamber of Commerce, the Select Board, Housing Trust, realtors, neighborhood associations, motels, and hotels. And we think this adds important context to the quantitative data. So we can go into some of the findings from those. So many interviewees we talked to did link the housing inventory and affordability challenges directly to short-term rentals. They felt like they were, demand for short-term rentals was squeezing out housing for year-round residents. But then there were others who weren't as confident in that statement. And they, rightly pointed out that, short-term rentals, may turn into become year-round rentals if they are not short-term rentals, or they could stay seasonally vacant, but they're not necessarily linked. So there is some debate on that topic. Next slide. I think the most kind of common complaint from folks we heard was issues around quality of life. This included things like traffic congestion, people concerned about having more cars in their communities as people, would use multiple cars at a place that maybe was designed for 1 or 2 cars. Also just concerned about the traffic related to maintaining a unit, so cleaning services coming in, things like that. There was also a feeling that folks who, stay in short-term rentals are not as committed to the community. Around enforcement, interviewees, really wanted to know more about the use of housing units in their community. They mentioned a desire to have better access to information on registration and licensing of units. They felt like there was a space to create more readily accessible information for town residents on short-term rentals in their neighborhoods. One of the other topics that came up, which I think is an important one to raise, is the issue of social connection. You know, and this also could be tied to, you know, seasonally vacant units as well, but they felt like there was the rise in short-term rentals made it feel like, you know, you could be in a community, but you wouldn't know anybody in your neighborhood because they were just visiting for a week. You know, one woman said, it feels like nuclear winter, talking about her neighborhood in the off season. There was quite a bit of concern about this idea of investors operating in the communities. I will say, even though there was concern about this, we weren't able to capture really good data to back this concern up. We looked at data from, you know, both we looked at the ownership of the units that were in the registry, but we also used some analysis done by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, who has a great study called Homes for Profit. So even though there was concern over this, we didn't find great evidence that there's a ton of investor activity. But clearly there was an appetite in the town for maybe regulating investors differently than you might regulate a, you know, seasonal homeowner who might have a desire over the long term to become a year-round resident when they retire, or, you know, a seasonally vacant unit that's just owned by a single family or individual. Second homeownership also came up quite a bit in the interviews, and that was because a lot of the folks we talked to kind of started off their residence in Yarmouth as second homeowners themselves. You know, they might have bought the home when they were younger and then retired to the community. And so I think there was an appetite for maybe treating second homeowners who were using short-term rental income to kind of subsidize the cost of owning the home differently than somebody who, you know, owned 5 properties and never occupied the home themselves. Although there was also appetite for potentially, you know, taxing second homeowners at a different level in order to help subsidize the cost of regulating these units and others. And then finally, the other thing that came up through our conversations was a real recognition of the role that tourism plays in the economy. So residents, you know, noted this in 2 ways. One was that seasonal workers, along with year-round residents, are really struggling to afford housing. And, you know, obviously they're needed in order to keep things moving during the high season. And then there was also, you know, a recognition that the folks who stay in short-term rentals, you know, participate in the tourism economy and you know, will stimulate the economy by spending money when they visit. So I'm going to review some of what's happening right now, and then I'll talk about some of the potential changes that might be available to the town. So again, this is probably not news to anyone here, but, you know, Yarmouth has adopted zoning regulations specifically for short-term rentals, and these are going to be sunsetting in 2026. So there's a requirement to register with the health department, and there is a fee of $180. Short-term rentals are currently not allowed in units designated as affordable or accessory dwelling units. There are requirements about off-street parking and restrictions on one-night stays, so those are not allowed. And there is a requirement to display registration and have 24/7 contact. So a lot of the things that folks said they would like to see enforced are, you know, already on the books. The other thing is just going back to the role of short-term rentals in the economy. If we go to the next slide. There is a local option room tax revenue. And so this has, here we have the trend over the last 4 years, which were available. So you can see the both the traditional lodging and short-term rental revenues have increased slightly since 2021, when we were kind of seeing that post-pandemic decline. And short-term rentals contributed, over $6 million over the last 4 years through this taxation. So overall, we kind of viewed it as there being kind of two big reasons to regulate. One was about community concerns about quality of life. So we definitely heard from residents and folks that, they're concerned about public safety, parking, noise, and large gatherings. These are reasons to, enforce existing regulations and potentially consider new ones. There was also this concern around preserving year-round housing and workforce housing inventory. And I will say here, this one we kind of highlighted potential because the thing with the regulation is, seasonal vacancy drives a lot of the concerns around access to year-round housing and workforce housing. So regulations of short-term rentals don't necessarily, mean that we're going to see a growth in year-round housing. It really needs to be the transition of existing short-term rentals. They just transition to seasonally vacant units that aren't rented out on the apps or to folks who are outside of the owners. Then we have no increase in year-round housing, though you might see a reduction in some of these other quality of life concerns. Some reasons for concern about regulation that we wanted to address were, the idea that, reducing any type of regulation is likely to reduce the supply of short-term rentals, and that would reduce the amount of available short-term rental lodging, would in turn reduce the occupancy tax revenue. And as I said, some units may remain seasonal and not re-enter that pool of year-round housing. And if there's reduced tourist volume, meaning, like if there aren't enough hotels and motels to accommodate this demand, you could see economic impacts of that on the town. So I'm going to talk now about some of the potential regulations. And this is just a visual to help kind of highlight, if we propose that most, if not all, of these regulations are likely to reduce the supply of short-term rental units, just because that's the nature of regulation. Some of the units may remain seasonal second homes, but some might turn into year-round housing. But the only way to kind of ensure that those units either change into year-round or workforce housing is through an additional step. So not just the regulation, but an additional step. So you'd need to have things like deed restrictions or incentives like the Lease to Locals programs to keep housing units available for year-round residents. So this is what this is trying to illustrate for folks. So the first regulation I want to touch on is quantitative unit caps. Great. So these are pretty common, and you can have them in a few different ways. So there can be a percentage cap. So this is something we saw in Palm Springs, where short-term rentals are capped at a share of a neighborhood's total housing units. And in Palm Springs, they use 20%. If a neighborhood's under that threshold, you can add additional units to the registry. But once it's met, then there are no new unit applications issued, and everybody has to go on a wait list. So just for reference, we provided the data here. So right now, there are 30% of units in Yarmouth are seasonally vacant, but 8% of the total housing units are registered as short-term rentals. And like I said, that we think overstates the numbers. So it's somewhere probably between the number of town registered units, was it's 5% and 8% is what we're seeing as the current, share of total housing units that are in the short-term rental use. There could also be investor restrictions. For example, in Great Barrington, there is a short-term rental bylaw that took effect in 2023, where registration requirements and qualifications were used to really focus on, I'm going to interpret this as moving ahead. So there's also zoning tools that can be used to institute quantitative unit caps. The other option is to do limits not on the number of units that somebody can hold, but how intensely those units can be used. So you can have maximum number of stays for a given time period, maximum number of days or nights, and you can also have length minimums. So restrictions for short stays, like Yarmouth already has in place for the 1 day. We have some data here to kind of inform those. So right now, the total number of reservation days for short-term rentals, according to AirDNA, is on the next slide. So you can see only 10% of short-term rentals were used for 14 days or less. Over a third were pretty intensely used, with 91 more reservation days or more per unit. So you'd want to think about these existing distribution of reservation days before setting any regulations here. I will say this is from AirDNA, and again, if somebody's renting units also through a landlord or not a landlord, a real estate agent, it wouldn't necessarily show up here in this data. So if anything, these are understating the intensity of the reservation days. We also looked at the length of the average registration. I know Yarmouth restricts 1 day, so I'm not sure what these 16 stays over a 1 day, how they got in there. But again, this is coming from AirDNA. But the typical stay we're looking at, like the most common is 4 days.
The long weekend.
One example of this is, Williamstown in Berkshires has implemented a 90-day rental maximum annually for short-term rentals in a calendar year. So that here, though, you could consider doing the length of the. You already have a 1 day restriction. You could lengthen it if you wanted to reduce kind of the turnover. Other strategies that we talk about in the report are the idea of creating incentives to encourage property owners to rent to year-round local residents. This is a tool that's been used in, I think, Nantucket, Provincetown. Placing deed restrictions could also be used to kind of, that's the other, to keep affordable housing units with owner occupancy requirements. Sorry, let me step back. So the owner occupancy requirements are just that you could require that an owner be present in the short-term rental unit. That, as I showed in that first slide, would mean that the vast majority of short-term rentals that are currently registered would no longer be legal. I think it was only 1,000 out of 1,438, 1,272 were non-owner occupied. So it's less than 300 that would meet that owner occupancy requirement here. The other thing which is already in place is you could put ADU or multifamily restrictions to limit the type of residential properties that could be used as short-term rentals. And this is something that's already in place in Yarmouth. So again, I'm just kind of speeding through this, but the conclusions and key takeaways are that, we really are not suggesting that there's kind of any silver bullet here. I think there's a need for really targeted regulations and an interest in, looking at owner-occupied units, second homeowner, and investor-operated rental properties, and potentially designing regulations for those different types of owners. There's also a strong interest in kind of improving enforcement of what is already on the books, increasing public access to that short-term rental registration data, exploring incentive-based approaches to expand year-round housing. This could be the things like the Lease to Locals program. And also, in the report, we have a lot of examples of regulations implemented in other localities, and we talk about those trade-offs. We really want to emphasize that there's no single policy that could address all of the concerns expressed by the stakeholders, And I think, whether or not you're targeting quality of life or looking to, retain more housing for year-round residents, it's going to require a multifaceted strategy that combines multiple approaches. And hopefully this report will help guide that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking all of this data that people should know that it was a very lengthy report that she summarized. And is this available on our website, Bob?
Yes, I believe it is.
Let's make sure that it is. I have a couple of questions for you before we go to the board. One is, can you talk about the Lease to Local program, what that is, who manages it, or if we're involved with it? I don't know. And can you just talk about that?
I'm happy to, yeah. So the Lease to Locals program, that's kind of the nice term that's used. Let me look at, so the town of Providence has used this program, and I believe they've contracted with an organization to help them administer it, known as PlaceMate. It's a private firm that partners with the municipalities to implement this program. But the idea is, how I said in the beginning that given the rates we're seeing in AirDNA, it would only take about 5 days to rent out a short-term rental unit and get the equivalent of a month's rent that you'd get through a year-round lease. So the idea here is that you create incentives through grants. In Provincetown in 2024, I think the grants ranged from $6,000 to $20,000 per unit. And the idea is that those grants make it more attractive for landlords to rent to local, folks who work in the community. So it's kind of a carrot rather than a stick.
I'm all about the carrots.
Yeah. So I think the other place it's happening right now is in Nantucket, Massachusetts. And so there are some examples, in the region locally where that program has been effective. I will say, it's not, so in the first year, I think we cited that there were 39 properties in Provincetown that housed 68 tenants. And it cost the town $528,000.
For how many tenants?
68 tenants in 39 properties.
Okay.
So.
All right.
That was Provincetown rents. I will say, Yarmouth is expensive, but less so than Provincetown.
Right. Okay, let's go to the board. Liz.
I spent the afternoon reading your report, and I was so excited to have it organized in such a great way. It's been certainly something that we've all been talking about, and it's in the newspapers because so many communities have been trying and adopting different strategies. And when we had our One Cape Cod Commission's One Cape forum this, where are we? I guess it was spring. A lot of it was about what the towns are trying. And so this was a really wonderful condensation of all of the different efforts being made, and including the seasonal communities aspect, which I think is so important for us now to consider as we go forward. So, and I, after having really read it and actually taking a lot of notes, I am on your signing along with your feeling that we have to find a combination of strategies that will work for Yarmouth. And we've talked a little bit about the residential exemption, for instance, and that's something that is being looked at, but not perhaps right now, a little bit in step with our capital improvements. So it's going to be a fodder for really, really important, good conversations. But I hope that what we will be able to do is make a decision on seasonal communities, and this will help influence that, because I think seasonal community is something that will be very beneficial to Yarmouth to sign up for. Thank you.
I agree with Liz that the seasonal communities designation is crucial to our strategizing. I wanted to ask you, given that you have very specific data for Yarmouth and for some other towns, do you see any models with towns that are reasonably comparable to Yarmouth that we might want to look at their studies and their policies? I'm aware there are a number of seasonal towns in Massachusetts, but maybe one about this size and with the retiree issue and with the seasonal work issue.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely, I bring up Provincetown because that's a place where, we've worked before. I know that it's not a complete one-to-one comparison given the differences in housing prices and rental costs. So I would also say, the Berkshires is doing some interesting work on seasonal communities as well. It's worth looking to those examples. The one thing I'd caution is just that a lot of the regulations, haven't been in place for as long as one would like in order to make, real strong, conclusions from their impact. So a lot of the places that have done work regulating short-term rentals, are places like New York City, where they banned Airbnb for a while. So that is not a great example necessarily for Yarmouth, though it is one of the only ones that's really available and has good hard, study and research data from.
Okay, so would Williamstown then be the closest that you'd suggest, or?
I'd have to look more closely at the demographics of Williamstown. I think, the Berkshires are different and they're kind of, their demand is a little bit, different in terms of when the intensity of it is. So there's the summer season, but there are also folks who travel out to the Berkshires in the winter. I think I'd really look at the Cape and your neighboring towns on the Cape for examples. And I know Provincetown's one that's been very active. I know Nantucket is active as well, but they're a little different with the island nature and the really extremely high cost of housing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Dorcas?
Thank you. I'm still kind of going through your study. There's an awful lot to learn from it.
Yeah.
You certainly have given us a wealth of information. I think at this point, that's really it. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I think for me, the takeaway, one of the big takeaways here is that the short-term rental situation or the market is not creating a serious problem in terms of affordable housing. I think there's been a concern here in the town and around the Cape that short-term rentals are making it more difficult to sustain some of our year-round housing inventory. And and you have to tell me if I've got this wrong, but that's the impression that I'm getting from the study, is that the short-term rentals market is not a problem here in Yarmouth for affordable housing. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say it's not a problem. I would say that it's part of a larger issue around seasonal vacancy. So I think what we're really trying to emphasize is that if you, regulate the short-term rentals without paying attention to, increasing the stock of year-round housing, you're not going to necessarily see an impact on the availability of year-round housing. And, a big issue with how, understanding the housing market is it's really is a lot of it's around supply and demand. So when there's, not enough supply of year-round housing and there's strong demand, you're going to see the costs go up. And I think that's what we see out on the Cape and in a lot of the seasonal communities where folks are also competing with, second homeowners, short-term rentals. So
I'm not sure I got an answer to my question. There was a lot there, but I'm really trying to
I guess
understand.
what I'm trying to say is if you want to, regulating short-term rentals alone is not going to solve the housing affordability issue. You need to also think about how to encourage year-round use of housing.
Yeah. Okay, well, this is a question that comes up in the community quite a bit. There's a concern that short-term rentals the market is contributing, and I think having a clear answer to that question, I still think is very, very important. I do agree with the recommendations that are coming out of this about the value of having incentives to promote access to year-round housing. I think that's a very helpful recommendation, and I think there's work that we can pursue on that. So I think that's a very good takeaway. But I was genuinely interested in having a study help us understand to what degree the short-term rental market was creating more pressures that were challenging to manage in terms of affordable year-round housing. And so, I'm glad to hear it's not a serious issue, but again, I'm not sure I got really the kind of answers that I've been looking for here. I hope that the report itself can be of value to the planning board in terms of the work that it's doing in updating its regulations. I mean, that was the other value in this, is to try to understand the role of short-term rentals in terms of the affordable housing supply here in Yarmouth, but also to provide the kind of information our planning board and our planning department needs in order to sort of fine-tune the regulations that we have that are going to be expiring, so that we can make sure that we're making the right tweaks and the right changes in the months ahead as we lead up to, I think, what would be the next fall's town meeting. So that would be our game plan. So I'm going to be genuinely interested in hearing some of the questions and comments from the planning board representatives that are here tonight, some of their thoughts, and I'm hopeful that they can take a lot of this work and run with it and come up with a set of recommendations that can be very helpful in terms of making changes to our and improvements to our own short-term rental regulations, because we need to do this. Other towns are doing this. I know we're going to be looking at what some of the other towns are doing and some of the issues that they're trying to tackle. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I think this adds to a body of knowledge that we're sort of developing so that we can help do a better job on dealing with this issue and coming to town meeting with a better set of regulations going forward. So thank you.
Bob, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, I wanted to just make a few comments on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust. And I too want to hear very much from the planning board, and maybe I can help set up a little bit the discussion as it moves forward. And the Affordable Housing Task Force is one of the agencies that funded this study. And, with Mark's leadership, we built upon the studies that were done in Provincetown and some of the other communities using the Donahue Institute. And I really want to thank Carrie Spritzer and her whole team for all of the work they did. This was a tremendous amount of data for our community that's enormously helpful. And to put a little bit finer of a point on Mark's question, what we learned is that, the question, do the short-term rentals impact the availability of year-round affordable housing? The answer to that question is yes, but it really is only in a marginal viewpoint. It is not a significant driver in terms of the housing, and the issues that we're dealing with are far larger. And, as an example, with only a little over 5% of the housing stock associated with the short-term rental market, it's far less than in other seasonally oriented communities where the growth in short-term rentals has become a major issue and it's taken over the housing. We see, routinely, nationally, the model I think she used was one of the communities is trying to keep it under 20%. And we're so far under that, it is not something that you can be seen as taking up a tremendous amount of the housing, but it is there. There is that portion, and we need to be careful with it. And some of the significant things that, we've learned, and Kerry mentioned this, and it's one of our biggest concerns. And a lot of this data was more pronounced even in the more seasonal communities like Provincetown, where if you attack this and say, well, short-term rentals are a problem, and we need to reduce the number of short-term rentals, and you just put a cap on it, there is absolutely no guarantee that any of those units will become year-round affordable rentals, which the community needs. So what we learned in our study is that if we focus on anything, at this point in our history, it does not appear as if the sheer number of the short-term rentals is overwhelming, but what we're looking to do is, and I think this leads us closer to those types of incentives that specifically tie the use of the property into having something that people will affirmatively take the step of converting it into a year-round rental housing opportunity. And there's a lot of things preventing that. People, are scared to become landlords. There's people who want to retain these seasonal homes for a portion of the year for their own use and don't want them tied up in that, and a number of things. So having programs that study offering assistance for people to investigate converting to year-round in terms of legal assistance, other assistance, providing financial assistance, those we feel are the programs that would be the most helpful in trying to use this seasonal population or housing stock as a potential conversion to year-round housing. And also, I think one of the concerns that we have with just a general ban on them or limiting the amounts, we have to understand that the short-term rental market is a significant economic driver for our resort economy here. It drives all the businesses, it drives, fuels just a lot of what happens. So any steps to lower that number, will have economic impacts. So we need to, again, be sure that if we're reducing that economic engine that's just feeding our community, we need to make sure that those units that we're reducing are transferred to year-round, not just not rented, not bringing people to visit our community. So that is an important issue. And the next piece of it, we talked about having a strategy that is multifaceted. And I really need to, at this point, mention the planning board in its efforts as we've gone through this study over the previous few years, and the bylaw that they've adopted that is on the books right now that the planning board will be working on really is the bylaw that has the safeguards for the quality of life in our community, issues such as the length of stay, the parking, that type of regulation. And I want to say my hat is really off. The planning board participated in our meetings that we had to meet back and forth with the Donahue Institute to study this issue and to develop solutions. And they were there every step of the way at the table. And I know right now they're working very, very hard on the new bylaw. And I think that's where this kind of feeds in. And I think by continuing the type of regulation that they have started and to ensure that, even though it's not a massive amount of the housing in the community, that, there are potential quality of life impacts that we feel are the number one types of issues, is to stay on top of the quality of life issues and then also develop other strategies that we can investigate the types of incentives that we can offer these seasonal homeowners. And there are still a lot of seasonal homeowners that are not in the short-term rental market as well. So the numbers of seasonal vacancy does not match up directly with short-term rentals. That's another key point. So with that, I think those are some of the key takeaways from on the Affordable Housing Trust standpoint. Mary may have a lot more to weigh in. She's been so great in terms of gathering all the data on this, but I really think, the planning board has a real key stake in this.
Thank you, Bob. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think I've been saying for the last 2 years that we need to start incentivizing year-round rental, and it's really about what we want for our town, right? What are we trying to achieve here? Are we trying to put restrictions on it, as you said, for the public safety things, which I think have been mostly addressed, or are we trying to create year-round housing? It's a little bit of both. The study does, I agree with Mark in the sense that it's not glaring. The one restriction that personally I think that I would be willing to look at would be the corporate ownership. But that doesn't seem to even be something that we're dealing with either. So I would love to see the incentive piece and try to get some of our people to rent it. I think one of the things that we should be doing is pushing our legislators to do something about the legal and judicial system when it comes to tenants. There are a lot of people that do not want to get into the rental business, and because people are there and they can't get them out, and that's really an unfortunate thing. We learned that, during COVID, they were allowed to stay for 2 years without having to pay. How does somebody who owns a house and has a mortgage, I wouldn't be able to do that. I don't know a lot of people who can. So that's another piece of it that we need to work to try to, they should have housing courts that help and assist homeowners, because without that, we're not, no matter what we incentivize it, it's not worth it. $20,000, if you have somebody living there for a year that damages your house, it's not worth it. So it's a combination of things. What I'd love to see, because, we talked a little bit about the seasonal communities, these are all decisions that are coming up that involve housing. And I'd love to see us maybe digest this a bit and have a housing forum with our planning board and our CEDC and everybody that's involved, or Affordable Housing Trust. We've done this
Bring the
before.
people together again.
We did this before a few years ago, and I think to always be in the same room and be able to listen and talk to everybody and hear all the different sides, so we can come up with a plan of where it is that the residents want us to take this. I was surprised to see some of the comments from this study from our people. I'd also like to learn more about placemat and the Lease to Locals program. Anything that we can do to incentivize it. But again, I think we all have to be on the same page in terms of asking for some type of system to be in place to help our homeowners, get people out of their house in less than 6 months to a year. If, nobody wants to see anybody homeless, I get it, right? But at the same time, if we really want to solve this issue and get people to rent their house instead of it sitting empty, it's something that we have to try to advocate for. Yeah, and again, the seasonal communities, the pros and cons with that from a housing perspective, I'd love to hear from the planning board on that as well. So I don't know how the board feels about that, having maybe a round table and
That's a good idea.
in a time, whenever the planning board's prepared to, after you guys discuss it and want to come, I think that it would be something that would be helpful to everybody.
Current bylaw it expires in November 2026, so.
It'll be before then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to make some.
And can I just add one last thing, Tracy, or just interrupt you? I was very struck, thank you, for bringing forward the note about the response time requirement from an owner when there is an issue. And that was in the report, and I thought, I know that a lot of the people who are frustrated by this short-term rental, it is because of traffic and noise and so on. And that seemed like a terrific, and again, that's one of those,
I think that
take a lot of different ideas, but for November
sure you can-
2026, that might be a good one.
I don't know
to
how
have
you
in
can make a line from our traffic to short-term rentals. I mean, it could be people passing through the town. It could be people at a
It's-
hotel. You have no idea where that traffic's coming from.
No,
You're
it's
talking
not
about neighbor.
traffic, it's parked cars on the property.
That's already been addressed in the bylaw.
Well, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? The response time for an owner, it's in the report. Oh, you have that now? So an owner has to respond if there's a complaint in 2 hours. Okay.
2 hours, wow.
They did do a really great job of, covering all the things that protect neighborhoods as far as trash and parking and all those things that people are concerned
Okay,
about.
because that was something that was raised in the report as a possible solution. And I guess it's something for us to recognize that it's been implemented already. So when you read the report, know that that part's been implemented. Good.
If I might
Yes.
just, the two things that really I came away from with this, on this study that surprised me. Number one was that the number of short-term rentals was really much lower than I thought it was going to be, number one. And number two, that the number of short-term rentals owned by outside companies, investors, was also much lower than I thought it was going to be. And it just left me feeling that I really need to kind of go back to the drawing board and start from square one. Because I thought it was going to be real easy, okay, we're just going to go out, and that's not the answer.
Right,
And- but I also want to say that when it comes to the issue of long-term housing, I wholly agree with Tracy that we're going to have to look at what we can do in the incentivizing of homeowners to help them, help to make it attractive for them to make it a long-term rental. I mean, there are so many, right now, and I can see the rationale for it, but there's so much favoring the side of the renter and not the landlord. And I think we need to start looking back at some of that, because to open your home, as Tracy said, so many people are opening, if they're opening their home, they're opening it because they need money. And they don't want to be delayed on when they're going to get that money. And they also don't want to have themselves involved in a lengthy legal battle, because now they've got somebody living in that home that they can't evict. So, yeah, I think that that's something we're really going to have to take a look at, is what can we do to help the landlord in these situations? And I very quickly was looking at that placemate while we've been sitting here, Provincetown, the interesting concept. That lease to locals, I think, is a very interesting concept.
Yeah, and we hear the argument too all the time when we do create our units here that, we sit here and we always say we want local preference, right? And then we find out that local preference really is only a certain amount that you can require. And, then it's the people of the town sometimes that are frustrated with the density that we allow. And we do that because we want people to afford to live here that are already here. And yet a lot of them get filled with people that are outside the town. So that is a very frustrating thing for our people, because they're putting up with the sacrifice of the funds that we're giving, the density that we're giving, all the things that we're giving, so that way we can keep our people here and they don't get in the units. But one of the only things I was going to say about that, these statistics are only as good as the people that are following the law. So these are people that are registering their short-term rentals. So while we sit here and say that it's only 8%, it's probably higher than that. There's just a lot of people that are doing it that aren't registering it and, paying the inspection fee, which is really unfortunate, because people, from the outside renting there should verify, because, we had a situation, look what happened to the family in Dennis. Right, they went to an Airbnb that didn't have carbon monoxide and smoke detectors or whatever it is. I'm not saying that family specifically, but I'm just saying, generally speaking, if I'm going to rent somewhere, I want to make sure that it's an inspected unit, that it has smoke alarms and it has a carbon monoxide detector and it's safe. So there's a benefit to that, but not everybody follows the rules. So I think that the number is probably a little bit higher than 8, but I don't know. I mean, she's talked about the room for error, but anyway, there's just a lot to digest here. I know that you guys are probably going to have some conversation on that, so maybe we can get together with them, Bob, and find out a time where, when they're ready, that before town meeting, that we can talk about the seasonal communities and this housing, to talk about what incentives that we can do and how we can afford it, because I remember a time not that long ago when the Cavalier redeveloped, and I was floored that we were paying, I think it was $60,000 a unit to make it affordable, right? To me, that was, for one family, that was a lot of money. And now to make a unit affordable, we're talking probably $100 and something thousand. I don't know what the number is, but it's a large number. And if we can keep a year-round rental for X amount of dollars, I think it's something that we should look at. I mean, obviously, a home ownership is always an ideal situation where, at least somebody's getting a home for it. But at some point in time, it's very, very difficult. Like, what can the town afford to subsidize for one family? Yeah. $100,000 that's a lot of money. And what we could do with that $100,000 to possibly, get housing for several families. So that's the way I look at it. Obviously it would be ideal for home ownership, but even if we can get them year-round rental here and get them to stay, then, maybe we can do that for 5 families. Go
Madam
ahead,
Chair,
Mark. Yes.
just a quick question. We build this as a joint meeting with the planning board. Are we going to give the planning board
If
time
they-
to ask
If they want to
questions?
speak. Sure, absolutely.
Tracy, while they're taking their seats, can I just ask you a procedural question? If we wanted to do anything about the short-term rentals, would we have to do a home rule petition to the legislature?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
we could.
Just a bylaw?
Well, it depends upon how we want to do it. So if we're going to ask for funding for a program, we would have to get funding authorized by town meeting to start a program through the Affordable Housing Trust, or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways that we could do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Hi, Joanne.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for this opportunity to join you this evening for this presentation of the Donahue study. I'd also like to thank Kerry and the UMass team for their efforts gathering important data about Yarmouth's STR profile, about obtaining feedback from various members of our community, and providing various options for potential regulatory and zoning provisions that we will be considering. The Planning Board, however, has expressed some real concern as to the purpose of the analysis, and this goes to Mr. Forrest's comments, and how that relates to affordable housing. Squeezing the box of STRs, does affordable housing pop out of that? And it doesn't, in our opinion. And so our focus will be on taking all the best information in this report and improving the existing STR. We need to keep a short-term rentals policy, and we need to have a new zoning bylaw for special town meeting. At the minutes of our February 4th meeting reflect that. We agreed that the strategy, and several of you have mentioned, limiting corporate ownership. We had a general discussion about that. We think that is something that we should seriously consider, including LLCs. That gets a little bit complicated because some of those are family related. But we think that those are some of the STR improvements that we would look at. We also want to look closely at Nantucket, West Tisbury, and Provincetown, who have already implemented changes to their STR. So they have things on the books that we can actually look at. The one other comment I wanted to make, again, I've said it before, I said it at the Affordable Housing Trust meeting. For me, I wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to do with the study. If it was meant to be something that was beneficial to, creating affordable housing rental units. It wasn't, and most of us felt that way, like, where is that going to come from? And I realized just listening to all of you tonight that, there's 2 ways we can do this. We can do it with a stick or a carrot. And most people think of zoning and regulations as a stick. And most people think of a carrot as incentives. And I think it's the incentives that are going to make this happen, not the stick. Because, and if we start to tighten and put caps on things, it will affect our availability of revenue for wastewater, which is a key revenue, that provides a key revenue source. So I would really like to thank you, Bob, for your comments, because your thoughts really mirrored, I think, most of what we have been thinking and talking about at the Planning Board. And it was articulated in such a great way. So that's kind of where we are. I'm not speaking for all of the members who are here. I'm sure they may have their own comments to make. But that's kind of the general direction we're going to take, because we have a calendar in front of us to get to special town meeting and have public hearings and come back to you and talk some more about it.
And so that's our plan going forward.
Excellent. I agree 100%.
So thank you.
I think it was set out to be just informative and for us to just kind of go through, and, you know, I think our suggestions are there, but I agree. I'm a carrot person. I think that the work that you have done has should stay in place, my personal opinion, and it protects our neighborhoods and does all of the safety, security type of stuff. But in terms of us looking at creating affordable housing, I think it's the incentive side. So,
And the one other thing I would mention that you also talked about, we do have things on the books for quality of life. It's the enforcement of them.
Yes.
That's really key. We have the ability to enforce them, and I think from the building commissioner and his staff, they do as best they can. But it all comes in. It's got to come in from a neighbor. They're not going to be driving around looking for issues. But I think we all agree that enforcement is a concern for neighborhoods, and in many cases, many of those residents do call. And there is a response. But we could also tighten, I think, those quality of life issues. We do have them on the books, but maybe there are some other ones that we should consider. But that's the stuff we're going to be looking at.
excellent.
So
May I
thank you.
make a comment at the end of that? I did have a constituent come specifically because of an neighborhood with the STRs, and he's had to complain. The police have had to come, and it's just not going away. So it as you've recognized, it's still it's still an issue. Don't know how to fix it.
And I'd like to welcome any members of the board
Sure.
to comment as well if they'd like. Anyone else?
Kathy, Mary, anybody who have anything they want to add?
I guess the only
Again?
thing is coming up with some type of mechanism to get the people who are identified as a quality of life problem, getting that information to the right people. So if people come and they call the police and the police come, they may not even know it's a short-term rental. They may not understand the full problem. That information may never get back to the building department. I did talk to Mark, and I think last year he got like one actual complaint that came to him in the building department, and then he was able to call the owner and deal with it right away. So I think a mechanism of getting people to the right place and help working with the police to help them get that right information to the building department so that we can do the enforcement that's needed.
Yeah. Okay.
Megan, you want to add anything? Mary? No? Okay. All right, I appreciate everybody coming, and Carrie, we very much appreciate your presentation and the information that you've provided. It's been a long time, a lot of work that you put into it, and hopefully we can have some type of roundtable to discuss this and where we're going to go with this as far as that and the seasonal community. Go ahead, Joyce.
Madam Chair, I was wondering if we could move up the Energy Committee item, because it actually, I believe the name change was made in part to make it match the language of the Planning Board's comprehensive plan. So, they might have an interest in that. Renaming of the Energy Committee to match things in your...
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Does anybody on the board want to move it?
I'm fine.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds
that's good.
Okay. All right.
Now, I saw Kathy make some motion over there. Were you saying that you supported the?
think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Get it on the record. Appreciate it.
I move
Yeah, there's a minority opinion in the back there. Do we want to?
We see it, we understand.
All right, well, who's doing that presentation?
I believe it's just a simple request, right, from the Vice Chair of Energy Committee?
It's all written up.
Well, I think if Barry could come to the table and maybe be prepared to answer some questions about it, that might be helpful.
But
Madam
this
Chair.
isn't, what my concern is we're looking for a change in a charge.
Yes.
That was the request.
Right, but this has a mission and a vision. I don't know where the charge is for me to read. Does anybody have a charge?
I think the charge is within the
title?
mission and vision. We could just make that the charge. I mean, that's.
Well, we can work on the charge. I think the idea is that the change to the charge would be to include a mission sort of envision that is a little more comprehensive. And then, so what we'd have to do is get the charge and maybe add the vision and then bring it back to the board for approval.
Okay, well, why don't you just explain what it is that's in our packet for the public to understand?
Really,
And then
so-
we can deal with the details.
As the Energy Committee has been reconstituted over the last year, I think there were 2 members a year ago, and we're up to 6. We have another candidate awaiting review. So we're just about at full strength. The committee has taken the Yarmouth Local Comprehensive Plan, which has a section on climate mitigation and energy, and in the implementation provisions of the plan, assigned the Energy Committee a large roster of tasks to help in the implementation of the plan. We've been developing a work plan to execute on that and to align the committee's role with the local comprehensive plan, proposed to call ourselves the Climate Mitigation and Energy Committee, which is how the local comprehensive plan defines this field of work. And the vision and mission statement are essentially the way we've described what we're supposed to do: a strong and prosperous town powered by clean, affordable, and secure energy, committed to climate mitigation and a sustainable future, to inspire climate mitigation and clean, affordable, secure energy sustainability throughout the town, municipal buildings, schools, commercial businesses, residential homes, and transportation vehicles. And that's actually somewhat more detailed charge than we currently have. We actually, I tried to find out through Pam Barnes what our current charge was, and actually it was very hard to go back to figure out a source document that defined our current charge, so we're sort of been chargeless. And the oldest document that she found was 2009, but the committee goes back to the 1990s, I think. So we're, I mean, we'd be happy to obviously accept whatever mission the
Need to
board
rectify
assigns us, but
Yeah, that's why I was
it
wondering
felt
if
like
this could
it filled
suffice.
it filled the void.
Okay.
No, because our charges not only talk about vision and mission, it talks about membership, it talks about how long you keep it. There's a lot to go into it. So on the surface, personally, I mean, I support the name change, but I can't until I see what the charge is. I
So maybe one of us can get you a template?
not me.
No,
Now, we can update the charge if the idea was the request comes in and then it has to be presented to the select board on the name change and the vision and the mission. And then if it's something the board wishes to do, then we'll take the charge and we'll incorporate this in. I think there is a charge.
I do
And
too.
it's just not as inspirational as,
No, I
This
think,
language.
there's a few things in a charge that, it's an advisory board. I think that it's extremely important that it's an advisory board that's not involved in, procurement as it has been in the past. I don't think it's appropriate for our boards to be involved in a procurement, so I want to see what it is that we're asking them to do. I mean, obviously, Personally, I think affordable energy is a worthy cause for our residents, but it's an oxymoron at this point. We have done nothing but increase energy costs for our residents by all of the Mass Save programs and all of the other programs that are just transferring those costs to somebody else. That's my personal opinion. I know you disagree with it, but I think we need to do more to get residents' rates down, and that's where I would.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
Yep, go ahead.
I'd like to move that we as a board support the redesignation of the Yarmouth Energy Committee as the Yarmouth Climate Mitigation and Energy Committee, and that we ask the town administrator to work with the current committee to come up with a revised charge to present to the Board of Selectmen or the Select Board in the near future.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing that. All right. So next we have a Parkers River Landing Policy and Management of the Park Use. Hi, good evening, Megan.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you for asking. How are you?
Great.
Great, thanks for being here tonight. This is an exciting topic to talk about events at our new Parkers River Landing space. There's some history that precedes you. I know you're a Yarmouth resident, so it probably doesn't. You know, we've had some great opportunities before we did the investment there that, didn't go over as well as we would like. So I'm interested in your presentation here tonight, and I know we already have a lot of events, so to speak, that are interested in utilizing the space, and I'm very much looking forward to the grand opening of the space. So
Yes,
with that,
we are too.
I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So what you have in your packet is the existing interim policy for use of the drive-in site, a draft event space policy, and a map of the area, and a template license agreement. So it's important to know that what we're developing here as a policy is for the event space only and not for the entire park. I think that'll come at a separate time. So what we've been developing is for the event space. So when we have an applicant or a person who is interested in using this event space, they'll first have this policy. And it is similar to the existing interim use policy. The differences are that this is more of a policy rather than rules and regulations, because we feel that those rules and regulations will come in the form of a license agreement. So when we have an applicant coming before us, we would have an interview of sorts, like a pre-application meeting, so we could review what their thoughts are, what their plans are, and to make sure that what they're looking to do fits the space.
When you say we, who would that be?
We, right now it's me. And we would develop a community development team, which would most likely be myself, the economic development program manager, once that gets filled, assistant town administrator and administration, for that pre-application meeting. And during that time, we would give them some suggestions and then move forward with an application. And once we get that application, we would have a formal team meeting of community development, building, zoning, health, fire, police, to go over their application and their site plan and answer any questions they have and have them answer any questions we have. And at that meeting, we would kind of hammer out the details of a license agreement, which would review security, what types of permits and licenses they would need. If they were having food trucks, they would need health licenses. If they were having alcohol, they would have to come through the select board for approvals. If they were having entertainment, that would have to come before the select board for a separate application. So any event that includes entertainment, music, that sort of thing, wouldn't be just an approval process through a simple application. It would be through the select board, just like it is now. And during that time, we would have a chance to explain what the sound study gave us, as far as input of where the stage goes, where the speakers go, and things like that, being very mindful of the neighborhood, and we'd also talk about time limits of when you can start and when you can finish and when the sound has to stop. we do have our sound bylaw, our noise bylaw that we would make sure applicants have access to and understand. And during that meeting, we would tell them what a license agreement would look like. And that license agreement that you have in your packet is a draft. I realize there's a paragraph that repeats itself. And it includes the majority of the things that we would be looking to nail down for smaller events or events that don't require as many things. We would exclude those and have a more streamlined license agreement.
How about a fee structure?
Fee structure, we are working on a fee structure. The plan is to refine this draft policy for you to look at, along with an application and a fee structure for your vote on. The fees that we've seen vary greatly from town to town and from space to space. There aren't really any spaces on the Cape quite like Parker's River Landing. So some of the fees that we've looked at are very small, and I don't think they're appropriate for this type of space and the work that will go into coordinating it. And they go up to $4,000 or $5,000 a day. So we wanted to vet those numbers before bringing them to you tonight. Tonight I'm looking for guidance on this policy as we look at it.
What about, okay, so there's insurance policies in there that are required. Sometimes we have town-sponsored events where the town requires all of this from a town organization, which, we've found has been problematic. For instance, we've done Memorial Day ceremonies here. We've used the property. We had to request to use the property, just regular citizens doing something on behalf of the town. And at the time, they wanted a certificate of insurance from somebody. It's really a town-sponsored event. So how is that going to be handled if we host some type of event and use the space as the town at Parker's River?
I would imagine we would talk to our insurance agent, and if the town can't really insure itself. We're already assigned, we're already insured.
How do I explain that? They ask, individual citizens sometimes do things on behalf of the town. We lost a great volunteer because she was asked to get a certificate, like she was going to go buy the certificate of insurance so she could have a ceremony here.
Policy, huh?
I know, well, I'm just saying that's something like that we should discuss if it's a town-sponsored event that.
Well, for example, the 250th, the Independence Day event that we're planning in June, that is a town-sponsored event, and we're not looking for a certificate of insurance.
But who's applying for it? So it's just, I'm just saying that these are things that we need to think of because it happens. And people are very black and white. They say, okay, you need a certificate of insurance. I guess it depends upon what the town accepts as their own and what they say is.
Right, sure.
What is somebody's.
Town-sponsored event, they ride under the town.
Right.
And it's the private events, and we need to clarify that too. And
So like maybe some of them we can accept and there's there's a fee waiver process or whatever. It's just, I'm just thinking out loud based on things that people have applied for use of space in the past.
Sure. Okay.
I wanted to just add a comment too onto Megan's remarks. First of all, very appreciative of the effort. This was a yeoman's work, and it's taken some time to go through all of the issues. Our office participated very strongly in this, and also I got to hand it to Megan. She involved some resources that we had with the town that had a lot of experience with some of the larger events, and allowed us to really highlight some of the key issues that need to be looked at for each event. And what I support the most out of this policy, the reason I think it's a very solid one for our community, that it uses the technical review team methodology that It's similar to our existing site plan review process with the same individuals involved, and what it's designed to do is to, we have an intake process where we can organize the application, make sure we get all the materials, but we leverage the expertise of every single one of the departments in order to weigh in on some of the larger events and to cover some of the critical areas that we have listed out there. So when we do these events, police department, fire department, DPW building, they all have critical things to offer, and then we can get everyone involved so that we put together sort of a comprehensive analysis, and then when we come to the select board, there's a major event, they need an entertainment license, they need an alcohol license, you have the benefit of the full report. And I do think the comments, we spent a lot of time talking about, you know, is it a town event, is it a private event? And I think it you know, we could call that out a little more in here, but what we talked about doing is, for the town events, we can kind of have a streamlined process. However, if it's a major, big event, which we haven't really done a lot of major town events, but we have the template, the guidelines that, you know, we won't have to buy additional insurance if it's a town event. But if we're gonna do some of the other things, I mean, the key items in here really are to ensure that all of the logistics are taken care of, because if you do a major event and it's not properly planned out, you know, that's when you have types of problems and things. So I think that, you know, we could probably tighten it down a little bit, but I just want to say I appreciate the work that went into it, and judging by, you know, where we're at now, I think it's a great start. We're not ready to jump in for this spring and start approving all of these huge events, but I think that that's going to come pretty quick. So what we want to do is, we wanted to have a chance to get feedback from the board, areas we should look at, and then tighten the thing down, and then come back, have more discussions about it.
Great. Is the drive-in site committee still in effect, or are they now disbanded?
see a
They were
member in the back.
disbanded, right? I'm pretty sure they were
Yeah,
disbanded.
we were sort of transitioning from that committee now to,
I just didn't know if they had a chance to look at any of this. It really wasn't in their charge, but,
right,
okay. Mark, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do. And I would agree with the sentiment that this is a good start. One of the things that I think would be important to add into this is to make it clear that the property was acquired by a town meeting vote. All right, we should make reference to the town meeting vote. We should also make reference in the policy to that it's protected under Article 97. All right, I would recommend, if you haven't reviewed the legal opinions and the legal work on Article 97 with respect to this site, that you do so. Because at times it was flagged as an issue when there was some discussion here in town about providing exclusive use of the site, and that runs afoul of Article 97. I want to point out that the Commonwealth's policies, rules, and regulations regarding the use of Article 97 property are evolving, and so we need to be current on what those policies and requirements are. And I think that needs to be reflected in terms of this overall document, in terms of how it can be used, because we have to follow those guidelines and those requirements. So that would be my biggest suggestion in terms of making improvements here.
Thank you. Great. Thanks. Dorcas?
I think it's a great start, Megan. Thank you. Everything really I was going to say, I think it's already been said. My big concern was, again, those town versus private. We've got to be a lot clearer in that language, in our definitions of what a town-sponsored event is.
Okay. Great. Joyce?
I think that's an important division. But I do remember a thing from Energy Committee in the past using the senior center, that we had someone from the senior center sponsoring Energy Committee for the event, and that was fine. So I think what is town sponsored, if it's not clear somewhere that I don't know about, probably would be important to indicate. I mean, one person or is it like the whole town sponsoring? But thank you for all the work.
Liz?
The event site that you mapped, that includes the bathrooms?
Does. Okay. Well, not exclusively, no. We would have them be able to be used by the event, but they are part of the park.
Right.
They are part of the park, just like
And as you pointed out in your documents, that the park will be open,
it will be open.
presumably, unless it's after hours, I would expect.
If the park has a closure, yes, I would imagine, right?
I was a little bit worried about the kayak access and having an event which does have alcohol involved, if that's what they license. And I don't know if there should be special consideration for either keeping that somehow really cordoned off, or if there even needs to be a special officer there safety officer for, when there is event. Of course, that would be paid for by the event sponsor. So that, I just see that as a dangerous aspect.
The only thing I can say to that is when we approve an alcohol license,
Supposed to stay on premises.
yeah, we need to make sure that it's contained and so that it doesn't get in the hands of minors. So that's something that we can make sure that it doesn't go out of a certain perimeter.
I'm just thinking now, though, that people will have been drinking and there is water nearby. So it's just, it's something that maybe when you're talking to an insurance person, it should be asked if there is a concern, if there needs to be special insurance for that kayak launch area. I don't know. I have no clue, but it seems like a bad combination.
Madam Chair, we can make a condition that the use, we will not allow alcohol to be consumed on the water.
Oh, well,
right?
that's a given.
You're
I'm
talking
more
about after the fact that
Yeah.
they, well, I mean, you can't,
You've got people.
they could
with
go
that-
down the road and go into Parker's River. I mean, you can't,
Yeah, it's just, have no solution. I just wonder if the questions
No, I think it's a
should
good
be
issue to
asked.
raise, and I think it's worth investigating to see what
do
can be
think
done.
we have to be cognizant of the property and the way that it's laid out when we do any approval of alcohol licenses.
Yeah. The other thing I thought, but Jim wants to say something, I think. Do you want to comment on that?
No?
Okay.
Make a comment, but it's not appropriate unless the
Chair?
chair recognizes me.
Right, I was trying to. Do you want to recognize?
Not really.
Okay.
Maybe when we're finished. When we're finished.
The other thing I wondered if it is possible to have, I'm thinking about the concerts and electricity use, and I don't know how the meters are set up, and I don't know if it could possibly be that the meter is, there's a reading before the event and a reading after the event, and that cost is pushed onto the event sponsor.
That is something we've considered, putting on a surcharge type thing for
Yeah.
electrical
Yeah,
use.
but,
Yeah.
and making sure that you have the right meter
Right.
so you can monitor that.
I don't know if they're separately metered, but
That's what you should check, and
we'll find out.
those were and then, of course, the license agreement obviously needs more work.
Yes.
West Yarmouth, and the name of the park is wrong, and there's missing pages, and never mind, okay, good.
All right, Jim, would you like to say something?
Madam Chair.
Introducing.
And very excited about this. Is actually going to happen in May, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your plans for our grand celebration of this new park. I would caution that this is not the only event space that we have in town. Homer Park, property across the street. So when creating this, there might be some thought given to make sure that
Universal?
that it's more universal so that it can be applied in any of the different town parks or recreation areas. So that's my 2 cents worth. I thank you for giving me the time. And,
Let's give him 3 cents, yay. Good to see you back.
don't mention my
Oh, shoot, sorry.
I can't sit long.
I do think it's great. It's really hard to foresee all of the potentials. I mean, we certainly didn't the last time that we tried this. And, I'm really excited about the beautiful space, but, you know, we have to be cognizant also of the neighbors that are there and trying to, you know, if we're doing music that we, you know, I think what happened the last time was it was every Friday or Saturday night, you know, so they need to be able to live in peace too. So maybe we have to really look at rotating it, maybe do like a Sunday afternoon or restrict it to only so many Friday or Saturday nights per month. But, you know, we can look at it on a case-by-case basis, but it's hard because you don't want to, you know, you don't want to make it appear like you're excluding certain people for certain reasons instead of looking at it and having some type of policy related to that. So, but I do think it's important and we need to remember that. We, in my opinion, we didn't do the best job of managing what we had and somewhat ruined it for ourselves. It was great events that we had. A lot of people really loved it, but it wasn't really fair to the neighbors at the same time. And I don't want to see that happen again. I don't want to see it get to a point where, you know, we can't have events there. So I think we really need to be cognizant about doing it. And I don't think it should be arbitrary. So to any extent that we're able to craft something within the policy that gives us the teeth that we may need to not allow something, I think that that's really important. Again, I think it's hard for us to sit here and say, oh, you can't because, you know, the neighbors are complaining, but we approve this one, and we don't approve that one because we're trying to space it out. So I don't know how you wrap your mind around that, but it was an issue. And I think Mark was here at the time.
Yeah, I got a lot of calls,
It
and I would
was-
spend a lot of nights there. So I think Megan's cell phone number should be definitely advertised in the policy. No, but I think, quite frankly, we learned a lot from that whole exercise. The reality is we did. And I think, and that information was used by the committee in the way in which the site was designed. I know concern about sound and impacts to the neighbors. So I think we've learned a lot from that, and I think it's been reflected in the design of it. But as the chair says, that there are other things that we certainly want to keep in mind. For example, and that is I think the neighbors were okay with some entertainment, but provided it wasn't excessive. All right, so we had sometimes where it was very busy, multiple nights, so that if there is, let's say, a request to handle, you know, let's say a concert series. I mean, there are folks that have expressed interest in doing more concerts there. The question's going to be what's tolerable in the neighborhood, and somehow we need to keep that in mind because I think, like I said, residents were okay with the kinds of uses. I think what hurt us was the intensity and the sustained noise. Folks didn't mind having some activity. It was just a question of how loud it was and sustained it was. And so as the site was designed, the sound sort of goes in a different direction. Before, when we were dealing with all the noise, the sound was being blasted across the way, and now it's coming in the other direction. And so I think the extent to which, as we manage the site, there are ways we can design or work with the people that are occupying the site, ways to still continue to keep those. We have to do it from our point of view in terms of how we manage the site. And it may very well be things that can be done that are obvious that can help sort of reduce noise and impacts. We may want to think about, you know, do we want to on a proposal have a public hearing or some kind of public opportunity to comment? There may be some events that we want to hear from the public. I mean, I think you should think about that.
Or any entertainment license would be a public hearing.
Well, so it would be an entertainment license. That's what we'd be envisioned. So if we had the Boston Symphony come to Yarmouth and
You'd have
do
to
a
apply.
concert for us, if we were so lucky.
Yes, they would have to apply and come before the select board, which would be advertised.
So there'd be an opportunity for the community.
Maybe a hat shell sometime down the road.
There you go, a half shell.
What would help
Cap shell.
deflect the
Baseball cap
sound
shell.
and, but I do agree that sound is going to be our number one obstacle in
Absolutely.
balancing all of it. Yeah, the hours,
Yeah, and you should also be aware, when we did this last time, the health agent, Bruce Murphy, like, I felt he lived out at the site. He was there constantly. I don't think we fully appreciated and realized the extent to which the use of the site required town staff and some departments to really spend an inordinate amount of time there. Now, Bruce never complained a minute. I mean, a lot of the town staff that worked on this didn't complain, but they clearly, the time and energy was quite significant. And that's the other thing, is who on our town staff is going to be fielding the application and helping shepherd this, because it takes a lot of work. It really does. Poor Kathy, you know, with all the other things that she was doing, you know, this kept her incredibly busy. So Kathy was very busy. We had members of I think the driving committee. I think some nights I was out there. Jim was out there, and Bruce Murphy, the health agent, spent an hour. Now, remember, this was COVID, so we had to be very cautious of those requirements. But there were food issues and other issues. So
We didn't have water like we have now. I think when it comes to food trucks and food, that's one of Bruce's top things is, you know, obviously the health of everybody, and having water, running water for these food events is going to help.
Yeah. I think the challenge in doing this is making sure that there's sufficient staff time to support working with whoever it is. Because think about it, there's going to be the people that are there utilizing the site, their hands are going to have to be held. And then there's the whole business of going through the whole process of it. I just want to make it clear that there's a significant amount of time that's involved in managing the site. And to the extent to which we can capture some of the revenue, maybe to support staff on that.
That's what I'm thinking is the administrative
We may have to get
fee.
an enterprise fund, so that way we can
There you go.
Yeah, I think
get staff,
I
overtime, whatever it takes. I mean, and maybe the fee structure is based on the anticipated participants. You know, I know one of the other things that we had the last time was they were selling tickets in the line of cars. We know they can't impact Route 28. So all, you know, there's a lot, to, like Mark said, that we learned.
there's a lot to this, so I think we want to
Yeah.
at least keep that in mind. We may not get it right the first time around, so this may be one of these,
We can amend it.
what do we call it, adaptive management?
Yeah, it's a live document,
Living
right?
What it is,
document.
isn't that the term, adaptive management?
Call it a live document. You know, when we find these things, you know, we may have to,
Yes, it's a living.
change the policy and the license as we go along.
So, you're gonna have your hands full with this, Megan, all right?
Good
I
luck,
am-
Megan.
I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Kathy's going like this.
Kathy is just
very
really.
happy, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I believe it's going to be, you know, we say all that, it's going to be a fantastic
It'll be wonderful.
event space. It's going to really add to the quality of life for our town and the things that we're going to be able to offer. So they're going to be amazing things, but there are going to be some kinks, as Mark said, that we're going to need to address. And I think, you know, staff, as you are very well aware, and I'm sure you're learning, but Kathy knows, is gets very tapped out. You know, we do a lot with a little. And so, you know, maybe we have, you know, maybe we can afford at some point in time to have staff dedicated to these events. I mean, if we could only be so lucky that it's that successful. But at the same time, there's going to be some time before we get there that it's going to have to be managed by others. And, you know, it's we haven't even talked about the maintenance of who's paying for the maintenance, is the maintenance in the budget, all of those things that we have every time we take on a new park. So, you know, the bathrooms, cleaning of the bathrooms, you know, you have these events that's gonna raise it. And nothing drives me crazier than to go to Old Town House Park and see the porta potties there when we spent probably $1 million to build the bathrooms because we don't have the people to clean them. I don't want to see that kind of stuff happen here, you know, so.
Sure.
Anyway, anybody else? Thank you so much, Megan. I don't know if we gave you enough direction on this. Okay. So we'll see you soon.
Did we plant enough fear?
Thank you so much.
She's still smiling, isn't that nice?
All right, so we're going to do our first review of the annual town meeting warrant.
So if you want, I can walk through the various articles, and
Let's do it.
folks can interrupt with any questions or issues. We don't need to vote anything this evening. We're going to have another reading, but we wanted to get oriented to the articles as they exist.
Just procedurally, Madam Chair, and to Bob, is the warrant closed? Have we closed the warrant?
Yes, the warrant was closed, and there's
But doesn't that require a vote of the board?
Yeah.
Did we do
no,
that?
the board adopted the schedule.
Oh, we
when-
adopted
when
the
s-
schedule, okay.
When we
Very
started.
good.
And some of it is done by the town's charter that establishes for the annual town meeting. For example,
We always
there's a,
voted.
there's a
I'm just old
January
school. We
5.
used to vote to
Yeah,
close the
We
warrant.
always voted on
Yeah.
certain dates to,
This is my problem. I'm old school,
so
Bob.
no more articles
Well,
could
when
be
we,
added.
when we, remember when we approved the calendar, that had the
Remember
dates
that.
listed right
So
out?
you're saying that that superseded that in the charter, our requirement to close the warrant by a certain date?
The,
We approved the schedule, what he's telling us.
So the warrant was closed. There's a deadline for, in the charter, for people to submit petition articles and articles to be submitted to be put on the warrant. And then we established a deadline for the departments, boards, and committees a little bit after that, and those all passed in January.
Understood. Historically,
We would take a
you're
vote.
saying that that's superseded it, it's basically giving the public knowledge based on our schedule, but historically, we always voted to close the date for the petition articles and to close the warrant so that nothing else could be added. I just want to make sure we're in alignment with the charter. You're saying we are based on the schedule we adopted.
Yes, which said when it was open, when it was closed, all of that stuff was laid out.
Okay, as long as we're in compliance.
So we're, at this point, we've been closed for quite some time now, so the only, like the select board could add additional articles until the time that you execute, but nobody can submit any new articles to you. It would have to be voted by the select board. And I want to point out also that you might have picked up a couple of typos in the one that we sent home, and we've been, reviewing it with a fine-tooth comb, so this evening I have,
This is fixed, right? The typos?
This adds up 3-3, so we can say what's in
new
here
one.
now.
Yeah, one
She
that
left a
was
new
at our
one for
place.
you that fixes a lot of the typos. So if you see something that's not fixed in the one that says 3/3/2026, that's the one from today, because it changed a little from the one that was sent home in your packet last Thursday.
Okay.
And, we definitely took advantage of the extra week that we had.
Great, take it away.
The first article is the budget adjustments, and the big item is the snow and ice,
That
where
hurts.
it was in at 800,000 prior to the blizzard. So the actual costs are going to be over 1.5 million.
That's what it.
Wow.
They're going to be what?
1.5.
Over
Oh,
1.5.
I thought you said 5 million.
So like double, yeah.
So between 1.5 and 2 million, I estimate, but they're calculating the costs, and some of the work is ongoing. The storm cleanup is still continuing now.
And why does it say FY 2025?
Because it's a current, well, no, it should be 26, right?
It'd be 26. This is the one that's the current fiscal year, and next year is going to be FY '27.
Gotcha.
And Article 2 is the omnibus budget article, and this sets forth the numbers for the general government departments in the same format as we've used in the past. And then moves into Article 3. We have the budget broken down into the various enterprise funds and constituent groups. So the general fund is in Article 2, and then we get into the enterprise funds. Article 3 is the budget for the Gulf Enterprise Fund. Article 4 is the budget for the Water Division, which is a special revenue budget, not an enterprise. Then Article 5 is the septage enterprise budget.
There's a typo in the italicized
Sure, let me see.
instead of at on the date, 7/01/2025. You want to say as of. In the others, you say as of, not at.
Which article are you on?
I'm sorry,
Article
5. In the, right above explanation, in Article 5, it says at 07/01/2025
At.
instead of as of. At's probably okay, but all the other ones say as of.
Okey-doke. Thank you, thank you. Much appreciated. And so that's Article 5. And then Article 6 is the wastewater enterprise budget article. And Article 7 is another special revenue article, the cable television communications budget. And after that, we get into the education budgets. Article 8 is the Dennis Yarmouth Regional
Did
School
you,
District
in our,
budget.
oops, sorry, yep. Did you want to put, so we talk about the revised regional agreement in the italicized explanation. Did you want to have a date for that revised regional agreement?
Where are you talking about?
Oh, you're.
Article
page
8,
15.
explanation
On page 15.
Page 15 at the top.
in the italicized. Is there a reason to have a date since we're about to revise, or we may be about to revise? It 2018 revised regional agreement. Is there any reason that it needs to be dated?
No.
Good, moving on.
It doesn't even need to say revised. I don't understand that. It's based on the regional agreement that's in place. I mean, what
We could
difference does
take
it
the
make?
word revised out.
I mean, it's just based on a regional agreement, right?
Yeah, we just, when you look at it, it says revised regional agreement on, that's what it says on the title page, so.
Well, I think
that's
that
why
was
they
from
took-
probably maybe a few years ago based on,
When
the-
it was so big that it was revised, that was the revised one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is the regional
it is
agreement.
just the regional agreement.
Absolutely correct. Okay, so yeah, we'll take the word revised out.
Just shaking in my boots, waiting to see what those yellow lines show.
Oh, God.
They met last night. Did they vote last night on a number, Joyce? Do you know?
They still have until March 9th, but
they're
it
still
seems
working
like they're fixed. They had some other things that they sadly deleted that will mean it's a lower amount than what they presented here.
And do you want, I was gonna give you an update later, but since we're on this, why don't we just take a second? I'll give you a part of my town administrator's report, because on Monday, we held our big meeting with the school committee and the town of Yarmouth and the town of Dennis.
Well, just the school chair.
Yeah, just the school chair, and it was with the superintendent of schools. He led the meeting, and so the school committee chair had attended as well. And so the update, when we received the initial proposal, I think it was over by approximately 3.2 million from what available revenues we had. And the good news is that they have made a number of cuts, I wouldn't say cuts, but reductions in their requested increase. And so the shortfall where it stands now is approximately 1.5 million. However, they haven't finalized that number. We had requested that if possible, we'd like to get that number down closer to 1 million. We felt that, that would be a more appropriate amount that would, be easier to seek for the override, develop contingency plans around. And there were a couple of critical numbers in the budget that, from the Finance Committee, they met with the Finance Committee reviewed, and these are some of the administrative and side items. They do not impact the classroom or the educational component or the strategic plan of the district in any way, but deal with issues such as, the insurances and transportation costs, just simply tracking them year to year to ensure that, the rest of the budget is as accurate as possible, so that if there's any additional flexibility, if there's some reductions, maybe they can come from items that aren't required as opposed to the classroom. And so the superintendent's office is still looking at those. So there are some potential areas that we may see it reduced further. We hope, that's what we requested, but we're going to meet again. But at least that's the update, that we've gone from 3.2 down to 1.5. So it's a lot of discussion. Everyone is working toward that, and but it won't be zero. So I think that that's what we determined, is that there is a structural element of their shortfall that that simply having a 2.5% increase, they feel will cut the education services to a point where it's going to damage things. And so there's that element as well.
So bringing it down to the 1.5, where does that leave Dennis? Are they going to still need an override, or are they all set now?
No, Dennis is, indicates they're going to go for an override. They need an override this year.
Anyways.
Yes.
If meeting last month was any indication, we're going to get pushback at town meeting about the eliminating 10 of the paraprofessional positions. Special ed people came in and spoke of
Right,
their
but
kids' experiences.
that was at
and
the
stuff.
recommendation, the superintendent recommended that as a change, and, you know, we're $3.2 million, so that's not gonna fly. You have to, you know, I mean, as sad as it is, I think you have to, I mean, obviously, it's up to the school committee, but I'd be looking to do something different at $3.2 million to see if you can get your budget passed. Because it could be, you know, if we bring 3.2 million and it fails, they're gonna be looking at probably bigger cuts than that. So it's unfortunate, but I trust his judgment to say that this is a restructuring that he's wants to do, and that he's looking to find some savings, so.
He insists it will eliminate some one-on-one stuff that isn't needed, like people with, kids with IEPs that don't require the one-on-one, that could work in a group of 3 or things like that, so.
Well, I know at the same time, he's working really hard to get the achievement up, so I mean, I guess you have to trust the professionals to say that if they're gonna, you know, I don't believe it would be in his best interest to do something that would be detrimental to the achievement, so, I mean, it's hard, it's always hard when we do this, it's always hard. We've had to cut deans, we've had to cut, you know, so many things that it's just been sad over the years, but, you know, when they really analyze it and he comes up with something, I would hope that the school committee, as hard as it is, because it's real people, right? You know, and these, you don't want to go backwards.
Okay, so you want
3.2.
to get back to, that's just where the school budget stands, but the key thing right now is Article 8, that's the school budget. We still don't have the numbers, and, but we're going to have another meeting. He's coming in, the school committee's looking, and they're going to.
Well, we have our public hearing, right?
Right.
We have our whole budget public hearing. And he'll be part of that?
Yes, absolutely.
Great.
And Article 9? the
So Article
numbers
9
there?
is the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School District budget, which we're also waiting on their final.
Did we feel there'd be an override in that as well?
Yes, that is probably,
It's a given.
I think in the 600,000 range. So whatever the one school comes up with, it's the combination of the two.
Right, so that, it sounds like well, let's just say off the cuff, 1.5 million, but we'd still have to add in another 600,000 for the
So
tech
that would be,
school.
that would be 2 articles, two ballot questions.
Now, that is.
That would be up to us to
That is up
decide.
to the
Yeah.
select board to decide.
I would think
And-
that's the
And
way
we
it would
have
have
that
to
on the
go.
agenda for a discussion and review of possible ballot questions, how you want to
Yep.
Yeah,
structure that.
Okay.
I'd like to see it as 2.
Yeah.
So that would be Article 9. And then that is the end of all of the FY '27 operating budgets. And from there, we move into the section of the warrant that contains the capital budgets. And again, we start with the restricted revenues, and Article 10 is the golf capital expense.
I had a question on, in the italicized explanation, it says the retained earnings account currently has, on page 16, the retained, currently has a 3,280,000, et cetera. But then in Article 3, it has a different retained golf enterprise reserves retained earnings is 2.9 million. Should they be the same?
Yes, they should be the same. You can't have two balances in the same account.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure it was the same account.
15. So what they did is they,
dates.
that's probably
Different
more
dates.
accurate, because it looks like the Article 3 is after the special town meeting held in November. And Article 9 there, 10, went back to when it was certified in October 30. So why don't we put the Article 3 one in, so it's more up to date?
So 10 is more up to date.
No, I think 3 is, because
is more up to date.
3 is as of 11/17 after the November town meeting.
Right.
Nice catch.
Yeah, Tom Sullivan doesn't have to stand up on it.
You're taking all this fun away.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Sure.
And then Article 11 is the Water Division capital expenses. And I think there's still, for some reason, they have that 3.06 highlighted, but I think we just need to review that again, make sure it's accurate.
Right.
Article 12 is the police cruiser financing for the new leases. And then Article 13 is the fire department capital expense.
Can I ask a question about that one?
Yes.
The payment to the stabilization, is that a fire department stabilization fund?
No, that is, and it's a
Payback?
payment, it's a payback.
I remember,
So
okay.
that, so it's the final payment of a payback, and we have another one of those proposed for this article. That when you see the replace engine 47, that's $1 million. And so what this article does is it takes that $1 million out of the capital stabilization fund, so we don't have to borrow it and pay interest, because interest rates aren't as low right now as they've been. And then we're gonna have a repayment plan from the ambulance receipts for that back to the capital stabilization fund. So it'll be a good way of keeping that capital stabilization fund, to have a feeder to it.
Why doesn't it have a balance for the stabilization fund here? It's the only one that has it. It doesn't have a balance in the stabilization fund in the article.
That's the
We could add
town
that.
stabilization.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I thought it was.
No. The payment from the 89,000 is from the town stabilization fund.
It's to the town.
It's to the stabilization
paying
fund.
Right, but the fire ambulance, the fire department has a stabilization fund, right? Reserve receipts?
Yeah, and it is a reserve receipt. It's not a stabilization fund, but it's ambulance receipt account.
Right.
So you want a balance of the
Well, I mean-
ambulance receipt account in there?
Oh, don't we usually? What's
We
in
can
there?
put that.
It's different than an enterprise account. I don't know.
It's one of those ones where we don't have a big balance in it. We take in a little over 2 million, and most of it goes into the salary budget for firefighters, and then the rest of it goes to capital. So they pretty much
Well,
spend
the
it.
water fund, is that a stabilization fund? We give that balance.
That's enterprise, isn't it?
Yeah, it's different. It's a special revenue fund. It's not an enterprise fund, and it's not a reserve receipt fund. But we can put ambulance. There's no reason why
I
we can't.
think we
put
should
it
be
in.
consistent.
Okay. And then Article 14 is the various departments' capital expenses. This is what we call the omnibus capital article. It's comprised of some raise and appropriates, and $2.6 million free cash. So,
Which, number 3, design services for facilities projects, which project?
let's see.
That's a parking lot for the senior center. I know they're doing something.
That's one of them. I don't have the whole list, but there's a list of,
Capital will be coming to us, right?
Yeah.
yes.
We'll get capital,
Okay.
but we'll be able to,
Question for that, then. Okay.
the 18 is the parking.
And they have a number of projects. There is a list, so we can get that.
Yeah, because it'll get asked. And in the explanation, it says the FY 2025, oh, well, maybe it is FY 2025. Funds the proposed 2025 capital improvement
That
program.
probably should be 26 too.
It's 26.
Time flies when you're having fun, I'll tell
Oh,
you.
yeah.
I never thought we'd see 2025, and now it's just time in history.
Y2K, remember that?
When I'm 64. How old?
I know, I am. Okay, thank you. And then Article 15 is the library construction article. Now, we've got the library team coming in
24th, isn't it?
24th. And so we're still waiting on the final dollars for that, but
And they're going to clean up the language where they have questions.
Oh, no, Thursday.
Oh, Thursday, okay, I was gonna say, okay.
Down at the bottom of their explanation, there's a couple of, like, should it be submitted, or, and should they have the word "and" in there?
yeah. See, this is what I get for letting them edit my, I wrote a perfectly fine explanation, and I sent it to the library to please edit to make sure it's good, and they sent it back with question marks. Maybe,
And
yeah,
you do
Amy, you
need
can
the
help me
"and,"
get a hold of these guys. We gotta
but I don't,
get rid of the question marks. Be
Yeah.
more confident, we'll have to tell them.
yeah.
Just tell it like it is, not the and but. So yeah, that has to be cleaned up. So that's Article 15. Then Article 16 are the easements for National Grid over the wastewater facilities so that we can have the gas service to the wastewater treatment plant when it's constructed. And I think the primary use for the gas is to fuel the generators.
Right.
It's not going to run on a lot of gas out there,
No.
but they do need a gas line.
I think there was another, let's see. Emitted gas between natural and service. Oh, the second line, not in the explanation. Wait a minute. Natural gas line, okay, in the explanation,
Yes.
equipment necessary to provide natural service. You want to
Oh,
put in the
natural
word
gas service.
Gas. Gas. It's so great to have extra eyes on this. You know, it's one of those things I read it 10
Yeah, you
times.
can't see it
And
anymore.
it looks like natural gas to me.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then Article 17 is a supplemental appropriation for the septic equalization tank rehabilitation. And remember, we put 4.4 million toward this project. There's 2 tanks. And when the bids came in, they needed additional funds to do both of them. And this way, we get both tanks done, and that septic plant is good for another.
I've got another typo in, in the explanation. It's the 4th line up, right under 4.4 million. You'll see the word engineers, and it needs to have an apostrophe because it's possessive.
Engineers' estimates.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. So that's Article 17. And from
So-
there,
Hold on. We already did the septage, right? We did the septage. What is the
we did the septage budget.
septage enterprise? So there's 3.2 million in that, and so the 4.4 is already out of that number, or?
Yes, the 4.4 it's a borrowing, and the 2.8. So it's not just a cap pay as you go. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna pay it back
Okay, so that's
from the
overtime.
septage.
Gotcha.
That way, they get to use a combination of the existing retained earnings and the future
future.
billings, so that which is a good way to do it when you have a capital project that has like a 25-year lifespan. The generally accepted practice is not to fund it upfront, is to fund it over the life of that, and that is a equity distribution among, the revenue raisers and the users. And that's Article 17. Now, Article 18 is a transfer of Phase 1 sewer collection system funding, and this was from one of the original articles that, back in 2021, that was put up for sewer collection design and engineering, and they have an amount of $400,000 left over that they're going to transfer into the Phase 1 construction account, and this is just going to help augment that. We're very tight with everything that's going on in the project, so that'll be a big help to finish things off and consolidate the funding. That's Article 18. And then Article 19 is the engineering for the Bayberry Hills discharge. And again, this is looking like a $35 million project. And so what we need to do is we need to get the designs completed, and this will be the $1.8 million, not $8 million, 1.8 million gallons, 1.8 million gallons per day of groundwater recharge for the effluent from the wastewater plant that right now we do not have. So we need the Bayberry Hills discharge.
Can you read that first sentence, Bob? I think it's got,
Of the explanation of the article?
no, the article.
To see what sums of money the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and transfer from available funds in the wastewater stabilization fund
Because then you give the amount.
in the amount, yeah,
So should it be, seems like you're saying to see what sum.
you could change that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's illegal, but I prefer to see
Yeah, you have, it's,
if
that's,
the town will vote, to
Yeah.
see if, that's the way
Yeah,
if
that's
I
the way
wrote
you
this
did it
right
in the
now,
other
I would
ones.
say to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and transfer the amount.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Forget in.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of, and it's clear.
And then, it's probably right, but the last sentence of the explanation, I think that's just information. It's anticipated that the construction funds will be requested at the April 2027 town meeting. That's just looking forward?
Yes, this, when's it coming back?
That's fine, okay.
Okay,
Yeah, and it also makes it very clear that this is money for the engineering and design.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then Article 20 is for collective bargaining wage adjustments for ongoing negotiations, and that covers, currently, we're starting up with the police patrolmen and supervisors, so this will be very necessary. And Article 21 is continued Matikes building maintenance costs. We get to, Article 22 is for the transfer and sale of surplus property, and this is the one that the board approved to move forward with, and so it needs a couple of things. It needs a town meeting approval, and again, it's 0.1 .15 acres that is located on, I think it's Lake Avenue, is it?
Lake
14
Road.
Lake Road.
Lake Road, 14 Lake Road, and it's map 49103. We saw the pictures of it. It's in the middle of that neighborhood. And so in addition to the town meeting, we still need to get an appraisal and do the procurement. It's going to be a whole bid situation, but this takes care of the town meeting piece. And then after that, we get into Article 23, which is the Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund. And it's laid out with the amounts for the program areas. Then Article 24 is the seasonal communities. It says designation. It's supposed to say designation.
Designation.
I just noticed that. And now,
It's dist.
next week, we have a joint meeting with the planning board to discuss this. And I just want to say, in terms of foreshadowing, the planning board has a lot of concerns about, there's the pros and the cons. And the con is there are requirements under the act that the town has to adopt for zoning that involves things such as tiny homes and a couple of other things that the planning board has been intensively studying. And, we tried to make this so that we would have a joint meeting and we would have a comprehensive set of recommendations. And I know they have another meeting scheduled, but the last I checked in, the planning board has a lot of reservations. They may feel that a process
we're ready
to
for this.
put it on hold and
Just don't.
request the state to change some of the regulations, not the law.
I don't think we're ready for it, but that's just me.
But we'll be able to, what we wanted was, this is the first chance we've had to do it, so we want to have a discussion with the board, present the pros and cons, and you folks will make a decision as to whether the article stays in or not. But I just wanted to say, we put it in as a placeholder, and I'm very, very much cognizant of the fact that the select board has not had a chance to
Yeah, I just think
review
it
this.
needs more vetting. I mean, well, we'll see. We'll talk to them. We can make that decision. We'll see how many questions we have left after.
So, just, I put this in as a placeholder.
I had big
wasn't
exclamation
requested.
points on this one to talk about. Okay, yeah.
So, so that's Article 24. And then we move into the section for the Community Preservation Act. And the first article is the estimated revenues that just establishes the benchmarks.
Housekeeping they did.
Yeah, for all of the different funds that are required under the act. And then the next article begins to move into funding the actual components of it. And Article 26 is the affordable housing projects, $895,000. And they're listed out A through E. Then Article 27 is the CPA recreation projects. And, that's where I think
Can I
it's
ask a
great.
quick question, Bob? Sorry. Is there going to be a presentation or anything on the affordable housing projects?
All of it. Yep,
Yeah,
CPA
they
will
give-
be before us.
Yes.
Yeah, they
So-
do a full presentation.
Have to.
Because that's exciting.
So Packet Land resiliency, that falls under recreation because of what, the boating? piece of
Yeah,
it, or-
it falls under
That's to fit into
recreation because of its use as boating. Yes, so it's eligible, and this is great because if you recall, this is like a $2.5 million project, and we're trying to leverage a major state grant to get this done. It'll be a big improvement.
Yay.
And by having CPA come up with the 500,000, it really takes.
I'm just surprised that that's a little bit of a stretch, but
You know,
I'm
takes
happy if it
takes
meets the
a lot off our
criteria.
shoulders. I was really sweating, because here I am trying to make this big pitch. Listen, we're going to use this capital improvement program to try to leverage the state grants, and they do exactly what you asked for. And then now I get the bill for 500,000, and so it's not like we couldn't have funded it, but I think it helps a lot having community preservation to
I
assist.
think it's great. I just am surprised it fits the criteria of recreation in the CPA.
strategy.
That's fine.
And
I'm trying to
Article.
figure out what is it on the facility that is recreation?
But that's how we've been getting the money all along
The
for,
water, nice try.
no,
Yeah.
I mean,
Access.
You get the marina there and you
got
get
no-
commercial boats there.
We've gotten a lot of CPA money up to now, and it's because we've always designated Packett's Landing as recreation. Because they're very tight fitting as to where you can get in. And hey, I can remember Gary took that to council. That was back when I was on, as we started
I
getting the
think
money.
Packett's Landing, when you're talking about the actual structure, is a little bit different than a coastal resiliency program. But
We're talking,
again, if it fits the criteria and they approve it, then that's great. But I don't see how it fits under the CPA.
I'm with Tracy on this. I have questions about it. But if council's ruled on it,
And
Do some of us need to go and play conspicuously there?
We
Yeah,
just
why
have to
don't
be
you get it?
conspicuous. You play, I'll
Like a
video,
hula hoop or
I'll
something.
videotape you.
go right ahead.
and this also preserves the whole park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be under open space.
So it's park maintenance.
You
Yeah,
s-
he's gotta keep
I love his
working it.
confidence.
Yeah, yeah.
No, you better not
He's
put
trying
it
to-
on the park maintenance, because park maintenance doesn't get covered by CPA funds.
He was just,
Well, you can improve like a park, major improvements.
okay.
There was a time when it first came out, they wouldn't, but now you can. I remember fighting over whether you could put lights on a ball field. Mm-hmm. Said, well, you didn't buy this with CPA, but that's all changed now. They sort of
Good.
liberalized it. And Article 28 is the open space, which, under here, this is the Kroll Pond restoration, which we're working with the Friends of Bass River on.
Can I just ask one thing in Article 27?
Yes.
At the top header in the black, all the rest of them say appropriate from FY '27, and the CPA for recreation says '26.
I gotta check that. Why does that, 2027? I'll, thank you. That's a good catch. I'll make sure it's
betcha that's
accurate.
a
I assume it's 2027, but sometimes,
Yeah.
I don't want to just make an assumption. Okay, and then, so Article 28 is the open space projects for Kroll Pond restoration, and another great project, and this is another
Wait a
use
minute.
of CPA.
What is Kroll Pond? Is that
That's
Stinky
the
Pond?
Run Pond, Stinky Pond. Yep.
Fun.
Oh,
This is our little ride on the Bass River.
And this is another example of the use of CPA to leverage some significant grant monies,
The
and
Army
so.
Corps of Engineers is sitting on a huge chunk of money for that project, so hopefully this will move it along.
Article 29 is historical preservation projects under CPA. And then we get to Article 30, which is the zoning article we'll be talking about next week with the planning board, and that's for the setbacks on Route 28, which is kind of interesting, and this evaluates the impacts of the right-of-way takings from the Mass DOT for the improvement of Route 28 on the compliance of VCOD properties with the setbacks.
I'm going to talk about what I talked about with you personally so that they hear me and maybe have time to think about it in advance, but there should be a sunset clause on that.
Right.
Because this is for relief for people that are property owners now where they're going to do the expansion of Route 28, but this, to me,
Those
10
people are
years.
Losing property.
Yeah, and they want to keep those, which I totally understand, but I'm thinking 10 years down the road, somebody buys that, they still you're not going to give those people that flexibility at that time.
Right.
Huh,
That's my thoughts when I
That's a
read
good
that.
thought.
that's a good point. There should be a sunset clause in there.
Or for
Does it need to
current
be in
owners.
there now? It's just food for thought. Just food for thought, right? Don't have to have it now.
Yeah, it's one of those things where,
Well, I think it should only be.
be done immediately, but it's gotta be done.
If you
at
don't
some-
do it now, you'll forget.
Yeah, but if somebody buys the property knowing that it's for, to me, this is for somebody who owns property that we're putting an additional burden on, right? Somebody buys the property and the burden's already there, it is what it is at that point. Am I wrong? I don't know. We'll talk to them.
So, I just want to go over the schedule is that this is the first draft of the town meeting warrant. So, I think it's tightening up a little bit. We'll have things filled in. Now, next week, March 10, we have set for the second reading of the warrant. And on March 24, it's scheduled for the third and final reading of the warrant, and that would be the night to execute the warrant. So there's basically 3 readings on the warrant, and this is the first of them.
Oh, and on March 10th, the zoning, planning's gonna come in to talk about those setbacks. So that's where that concern should come out, Tracy, for
Let's see.
catch on that.
All right, is that it on the warrant? No other action you need from us? Okay. Joyce, board and committee actions?
Okay, well, short and sweet tonight. I'd like to recommend that we accept the resignation of Kellen Bogle from the library board with thanks. She's also promised to try to attract new members to the library board to make up for her absence.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then an appointment to the Recreation Commission for an alternate term that will end July 31st, 2026. Vicky Fulcher LeBlanc.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No heavy lifting here,
All right,
wow.
great. Agenda review.
That's good with your bum arm, you don't have to do too heavy lifting.
Not that we'd be capable of it.
I want to bring up the fact that the same group that has been promoting the fairness resolution has brought the signatures to Mary Maslowski for it to be a ballot question. So, but it would come to us to approve that as a ballot question, so.
So when she brings it to us, that's what we said
Right,
last time.
I
and
just
we'll
thought I'd
address
give
it.
you a
Yeah.
heads up.
Yep. Okey dokey.
So we've got a busy
Yeah,
couple of weeks coming up.
we are straight out because all of the hearings that were on tonight's got pushed off as well due to the storm, so we are full up next week.
And I did have some people very upset about the possible noise issue, but I won't say anymore because it's not on the agenda. Never mind, it's not on the agenda.
Noise issue.
That's next week.
Next week.
Week. I've heard from people too, Liz.
Mm-hmm.
And
Talk about it next
Won't be
week.
fast, is all I'm saying.
on the 24th, we're, I think, moving, just because of the scheduling, till April 7. We have a dog hearing complaint that has been filed, and I just want to say this one, we spent an enormous amount of energy trying to mitigate the concerns and issues in the neighborhood, but sometimes there's disputes that, people just resist.
So this is not the family that wanted to have us change the licensing?
No, this
Oh.
is a complaint, a complaint about a dog, a vicious dog complaint.
Oh.
And so that comes under a separate section in the statute. I know DNR has conducted hearings and numerous follow-ups, and I've also met with the, poor people involved, and they are, pretty much demanding a hearing in front of the select board. So that is, according to the statute, that's our final step in the process.
And I'm sorry to hold us up, but what did happen with the change to the licensing to accommodate the people who sent the letter? Because trying to remember now, their son, I think, needs a service dog? And, can you help me remember? That's what I thought this was, so
Yeah, no, that's not in there. And, no, I think that was provided for in the new bylaw, and
does it, okay, as long as it was. Okay. So you want to move that on dog hearing? Is that what you're saying?
to April 7.
Okay.
Okay.
That way, I think having all of that stuff on March 24, I think we need to focus more on the issues that we have on there, all of the town meeting stuff, and that's a big night.
Mhm.
Okay, we've got Packet Landing coming in too, so.
I would check with council on that. I know that they review it, but
What's that?
I said I would check with council on that article.
On Packet Landing?
All right, individual items. Mark, do you have any individual items?
I'll pass.
Dorcas? Joyce?
I'm good.
Liz? Okay, great. Town administrator items, we'll go to the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Just so you all know, on the consent agenda is that letter to the school committee. Bob wanted to make sure that we put it on there, that you saw it before we signed it. I've signed it, so. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. And updates, Bob.
Okay,
Oh, and the only item, and I know Tom talked about it at the beginning, is we have our parade this weekend. So everybody get out there.
so I need to know,
We never got an invitation this year, did we?
well, I think that they were a little bit, I mean, informal. I want you to know that I did speak with the parade organizers. They are very anxious to, with heartfelt gratitude, invite the select board to be in the parade, and we've made all of those arrangements. But I need to know who's going to be able to attend, and we want to make sure that, you know, we have a few of the golf
Joyce and I are
courts.
gonna ride a cart together. She's gonna
I'm thinking about,
wing.
instead of throwing candy, which I'm not crazy about doing, I was gonna bring my dog on a leash and have Sophie with me.
Great. Do you want to drive in a cart, or?
No, I can walk. We can,
And Sophie
the dog
will-
and I
will
can
wear
walk.
green?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I have my hat ready, so, I mean,
There's
Beautiful.
some stuff that you
I
gave
mean,
us,
I
yeah.
like to, you know.
The candy part, no.
And we have all the
definitely-
buckets.
Crazy about throwing the candy.
I'm
though.
happy with the candy.
Well,
Throw
nobody likes us unless we have candy.
I know.
They don't really care to
That's why
see
I
us,
figure I'll
just so you know.
I'll just do the dog instead, though.
Yeah, but
I'll try
they're
it.
gonna say things like this, who are those people? And why are they here? This is,
That's all right.
so unless you have candy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, no,
I
we eat
hear
our
you, but-
candy. And they liked the candy last time, but we did,
We
once
did good.
again, run
We
out.
And no matter how much you have, Bob, you know how it works.
I know. Poor Mary Alice.
Is Vaughn coming to help us?
Oh, Vaughn's coming.
I
He
can't
wouldn't
wait.
miss it for the world.
I,
Oh, cool.
Vaughn,
Do we have to have Joe Flynn in one of the carts?
If he's around, if he needs a ride, we're here for him.
Okey-dokey.
I think that, you know, we've got, I just want to make sure we've got what we need.
Do we have 3 carts?
I wouldn't give him
this
his own cart, but I'd give him a ride.
Dorcas, you're not going to kick me out, right?
No, Joyce and I are taken.
And
I
so
was
you're
his
gonna drive a
chauffeur
cart
last year,
too,
so.
right? Okay, so 2 carts we have. We might not have room for Mr. Flynn then.
So I think we meet around
And
10,
Mr.
right? And
Flynn.
take off at 11?
We'll get us mixed up
And
all the
any
time.
other admonitions or anything,
Candy.
I'll
Take off
get in
at
touch with you.
candy, then
Candy.
more
Candy.
candy that you, if you think you have enough,
You don't.
Get more.
I don't even know how to explain it.
And we're to be there at 10 o'clock. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I had, you have
Was it
this, you have our
Jolly
sign?
Rogers?
Yeah, we have a sign. We made a new sign.
Okay. Do we want to bedazzle the carts or anything? Amy, what's up with you? Are you,
What's
are
Amy
you joining
doing?
us?
I will be there, yes.
Ah, good.
All right.
I already have my Irish knit.
Are you going to walk with us?
Yes.
Okay. There's a candy thrower.
I like it. All right. So we
We might
have,
need a couple of extra buckets then, too.
and Bob, I just want to thank you. I know that there was a lot of nervousness and stress about getting the roads done, and I know you worked really hard on
Yeah.
making sure that we got the sidewalks plowed and we make this happen, so. I
It's
know.
great teamwork, but at the end of the day, it's all about the DPW. What an amazing crew.
Well, they did a superb job. Everyone in town did, really and truly. They all jumped in and helped out whatever way they needed to, with a smile. And
Got a
I
nice
have to
note.
admit, some folks in their testiness were not that easy. By that I mean the public were not that easy for the town
Like
To
the,
deal with, yeah.
to handle. Some
fist
of the
fights at the gas pump and things of that nature is like, but I'll tell you,
Did it with a smile.
We had a beautiful note from, was it Joe Simi? A handwritten note.
We had a couple.
Yeah, that was really nice.
coming to the parade?
I will not be able to join you.
Okay.
Sorry. We have there's a big environmental conference going on at the college,
Okay.
and I have to say something.
Okay.
so do you guys want a storm update?
Yes.
All right, great. I did prepare one just, again, just in terms of the response to the winter storm of 2026, we launched in our community a comprehensive emergency response that I think was similar to what we would do for a major hurricane. And on late Sunday and Monday, February 22 and 23, we received over 20 inches of snow along with high winds gusting to 75 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Some of the major storm emergency preparations began really in earnest on Friday. We opened up the Emergency Operations Center by 7 a.m. on Sunday, February 22, and we had that Emergency Operations Center remaining operational all the way through Thursday, February 26, and that is the key hub of our
And was it
operations.
it's the high school, correct?
No, the EOC is
fire
at the
station.
police department.
Department upstairs.
Okay, the hub,
And,
right.
and they're responsible for conducting constant coordination between Eversource, all the town departments, MEMA, the Barnstable County Multi-Agency Coordination Center, all of the, and this is a time, there's no power, there's no electricity, there's no anything, so that EOC being up and running and being the source of all the communications was absolutely critical. And it started with in terms of ensuring public safety, we had to have the police, fire, and DNR increase staffing across all of the shifts. And the chair of the select board declared a state of emergency at 9 p.m. on Monday, February 23rd. And the town's leadership participated in daily briefings with MEMA, Barnstable County Emergency Management, and we also conducted daily meetings with our department heads and division heads for internal coordination and communication, and regular updates through our communications went out to the community, reaching record numbers of individuals from any other previous communications we've had. At the peak of the storm, power outages affected over 70% of the town's population. And restoration efforts began as soon as conditions allowed, immediately, as Tuesday after the storm. There was no restoration. All of their crews were assigned to help remove the lines from the streets so that we could do the plowing. But Eversource, to their credit, ultimately flooded southeastern Massachusetts with over 2,000 crews. Now, it was one of the things, that this storm, it was important that it was just southeastern Mass, because a lot of times with the storms, it's like the whole state, and we get lost. We're like the end of the line, and by the time they get here, but we had over 2,000 crews in our region to assist in restoration, and most accounts were restored by Thursday evening. That seemed to be the key date there. And by Friday morning, February 27, Eversource reported only single sporadic outages here and there that they were trying to track down, but we maintained very strong communications on a just permanent basis. We had you might know that the Eversource EOC is located in Yarmouth, out on Willow Street. So they had their top brass and a lot of the everything out of right there. And we had a person embedded in our EOC, so we had constant, like Eversource, tied to our hip, which you need in these emergencies. As a result of all of the outages, the emergency shelter, the Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School Emergency Shelter, just our local one, was opened on Monday, February 23 at 8 p.m. And it remained operational all the way through Friday at 1 p.m., which it's a long time for a shelter. The coordination of the volunteers alone was a massive effort. Approximately 250 individuals were there most of the week, and they stayed at night, and an additional 50 used the shelter during the day. It was also our warming center.
Oh.
The shelter was particularly important, not just for our community, but as a regional facility, because the Nauset Lower Cape facility had to shut down. And there were several days before Harwich even opened up that they had no shelter, and they moved 50 people to Dennis Yarmouth. So we carried the whole Mid-Cape, not the whole Mid-Cape, because we had Barnstable Intermediate, but all of our town, and then all of the rest of the Cape as well.
And isn't there food service involved as well?
There's meals,
Yeah.
there's food. We had the
Family Table Collaborative, yeah. The county's job is to sort of staff a county-wide action center that brings together all the various agencies and partners.
Right.
So much of county staff helps recruit the volunteers, recruit the nurses. The nurses either come from the county, although in this case DY put some nurses
Yep,
up
Dr.
to
Smith
help
had
us out.
called,
They got some
asked their nurses to step up.
So,
And they do
yeah.
take animals at the shelter.
They did.
Yes.
They did.
animals.
Yeah, people came with their dogs,
Yeah.
and the dogs are very well behaved and very well taken care of.
We're trying to
Coco had
find
to
out
come.
if,
Coco would have been
not
just.
been well behaved, but
we're trying to find out if they used the battery at all.
They probably did.
Well, we're gonna find out.
You'll find out. Oh, that's good. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I couldn't get a straight answer out of Steve. He was like, call
I don't
CVAC.
think he knows.
Yeah, but he's their facilities manager. But on that point,
He worked around the clock for days.
the school was enormous for us, and which kind of brings a point that I just wanted to mention, that especially with the shelter operation and things of that nature, that we have some unsung heroes in our community that really just stood out, that we're going to need to, bring in and thank for these efforts.
Oh,
And,
good.
with the school, what they did to host that facility was enormous. The Family Table Collaborative, AmeriCorps, volunteers were just incredible. Nick Pascarosa was just an amazing resource.
He's the glue. He's the glue.
He certainly was. I mean, absolutely. The RTA helped shuttle everyone, and that's just to start the list, but we'll be working on that as we, get closer to the after actions that we want to do. We have a lot of thanks that we want to do. And I wanted to add, the Yarmouth Police responded to over 310 storm-related incidents between Sunday and Friday. The fire department also responded to hundreds of calls for services, which come in for the entire week, triple the normal call volume, 4 days in a row. Crews responded to over 100 calls in the first 24 hours of the storm alone. And that's just amazing. And the command staff wanted, me to mention how tremendously proud they were of the commitment of the men and women of the fire department. I mean, intensity of this operation, even at extra staff, under very difficult circumstances. And the fire leadership team also was hugely active in storm and emergency coordination and control, coordinating between the police, fire, DPW, extremely strong for this event. I'm telling you, I was very impressed with the professionalism of all of these agencies.
So replicate this town by town, right? In each town, you had literally this kind of effort going on in virtually every community, with people being pulled out of the snow. The folks that I felt really bad about were the folks that had to come all the way from the lower Cape.
Town,
That
Provincetown and Wellfleet and Truro, I think, were 100% without power.
Yeah, and when because they had problems, the new school, Nauset,
Brand
right?
new.
They had problems with the generator there, so that
no.
shelter, huh?
That's awful.
Yeah, so literally they had everybody there, and then they had to literally truck everybody with RTA and other vehicles to bring them all here. And so this place filled up.
And there's another thing that the fire department does that you might not notice, but serving as that coordination between, whether it's the hospital, all of our major facilities. We had massive facilities with people at risk that lost their generators, had no contingency plans.
A lot of
They
people
were
on
lost.
oxygen.
And
A lot of medically fragile and people on oxygen that were at our shelter. So it needed,
All of Heatherwood, I was startled that they didn't have a generator.
yeah, so there, I
we
mean,
had to get them,
It went down.
and we had to get them back up. I mean, you don't want to be evacuating
No.
700-800 people facilities. It's just, but it was the fire department team that works between finding backup generators for people, getting Eversource on the priority lists, and all of these things that you don't see. These guys are going 24/7 working on, and these are things that go through the night. And I want to mention before I stop here too is the DPW was just amazing during the storm. 24/7 operations, Sunday through Friday. And it took most of last week to clear the snow and widen the 240 miles of roads that Yarmouth maintains. And don't forget, with the type of snow that we have here on Cape Cod, the backbone of our fleet really is the cadre of contractors in 1-ton trucks and 1.5-ton trucks that have the plows, and they knock out those smaller residential areas. Well, we spent the better part of the beginning of that storm pulling every single one of them out because they just were too small to get the job done. And the way Jeff handled it, I thought was like fabulous, is that they had to commandeer every piece of heavy equipment that they could find. Now, here's something interesting is we've all lived under the wastewater construction inconvenience that's been horrible for us. Well, there's a silver lining that having all of those front-end loaders and gear around, the DPW put them all to work, and they went out on the street and created these teams where a front-end loader would lead the smaller truck and get it like burst open, and then the smaller truck can get it so it's a little wider.
That's
And
so cool.
they went painstakingly throughout 240 miles doing that, and all night, every night, changing drivers on the loaders. And the DPW continues to clear snow from 40 miles of sidewalks that the town maintains. The highest priority was on the pathways to the schools, which were taken care of first. And then they started removing the snow from the sidewalks in the areas associated with the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And thanks to the DPW, all of the roads and viewing areas are going to be clear and safe for that on Saturday.
Nice.
And that's just a miracle. We didn't think it was possible. If you'd asked me on Wednesday or Thursday of last week, I'd have said, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it really came together, and it came together quick. And the, okay, now this is kind of important. The department is working right now on clearing an area at the waste management facility to accommodate dropping off brush from local residents. And the guidance is support is sought from the select board regarding the fees. It's normally $65 a ton with a $5 minimum due to the cost of having, we have to have a contractor out there with equipment to chip and remove the material. There's no way where that we can
can't
just
store
store
it,
it long
yeah.
term. So
Did
that's
this
going to
during the-
cost a lot of money.
we did this during the tornado.
Yeah, we waived fees for a while. We had a
It was
period
a
of time.
very short period of
Yeah.
time.
I don't know if you're looking to
The
waive fees.
DPW is suggesting that they need until March 10 to clear the spot, and so they'd like to go out to the community, ask everyone to hang on to their stuff till March 10. They'll get it set up and, potentially a 1 to 2 week fee waiver, like a 2-week
Maybe even a
period.
shorter period of time. Just something where people can,
I think that's what we did in the last
Yeah.
storm, was 1 to 2 weeks. I think we did it 1 week, and then we extended it a week.
that's
Well,
right.
we'll be in a position to,
Right. So I think it's consistent
week?
with what we've done before. I think what they're asking for, I think makes sense.
Yeah.
Tracy, I think it's what we've done
No,
before.
I asked him for it because I had a
So
ton of people asking.
I think we should support that.
I just know that it's going to be expensive, so,
We need a
I
vote.
mean, well,
I think the consensus is that we're behind it, right?
yeah, I think that's fine, and we'll get it ready and we'll
I
report back
think
to
if we
you.
can do it in a short period of time, that will save us money, that would be great. I mean, I don't think it should, we have to put restrictions on it. It shouldn't be for commercial, it should be for our residents.
Right.
Just residential.
But maybe we
Well, the
start with a week.
The local landscapers are doing it for the residents.
Well, they can pay. I mean, they pay now. They pay to dispose of brush.
I'm happy to be consistent with what we've done in the past.
I don't think we allowed commercial.
We're not now, that's for sure.
We can look at it. What we did last time is what we should do. Whatever we did for the tornado.
That's all I'm suggesting, is let's be
All right,
consistent
we'll have
with
to
how we
double
handle
check that, and I'll get together with Jeff, and it's good that we're meeting next week too, so we can report back and
How do you
finalize it.
prove, though, that these commercial people are doing it for the residents of our town? They could be taking it from any town and not paying the fee. I think that's a difficult one. I mean,
Well, it's not an exorbitant fee. I mean, $65 for a ton, that's like, it'd take a lot to get a ton.
not if they're saving it between now and March 10th.
I'm comfortable with our team handling it.
However we did it before.
Yeah, however we handled it before.
Because we need to be
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah, I just want to be consistent.
I have are you done, Bob?
Now, let me wrap up here. Okay, so that covered DPW. Now, just in terms of the town departments, again, we coordinated very closely, over the weekend and into the week. We had daily department and division head meetings to coordinate closely with the public safety and everyone involved. The town hall and our other major facilities were closed on Monday and Tuesday. We had no heat, we had no power, we had no access. As soon as we got, back on, we were opening with full normal operations on Wednesday, February 25. And I'll tell you something, I think the residents appreciated that. We had a lot of people visiting, with just sort of dazed looks, and they just liked the opportunity to come into town hall and visit with us and share their issues and concerns. I mean, it was when we all knew we were shell-shocked by Mother Nature, a whole bunch of us, and so I was really happy that we were able to get back online on the 25th. And again, I was greatly impressed with the leadership of all of our department heads, close coordination and commitment of everyone during the storm emergency. But, the big three, police, fire, DPW, highly professional. You have some fabulous agencies there. I was honored to work with these people. I mean, truly. We're currently calculating the cost of the storm event for the full response, and that is a department by department. There's a lot of manpower. There's going to be a lot of cost. And we're also working to get that information to MEMA, and we're trying to make a request for federal aid. We know hopefully at least we'll have some state, but we're going to try to get reimbursed for some of this. I mean, the response was more than we did for the last hurricane, believe me. I mean, it was very impactful. This storm was hugely impactful for our community.
Not even over.
But again, we
More than the tornado, I would say.
we talked about the snow and ice, and that alone was a ton, and so.
Just by nature of it being in the winter instead of the summer. In the tornado case, we didn't have to worry about heat.
Right. I had this, I couldn't get out of my house. And so I wondered if we could put together, I had some lessons learned, like if you leave your house, you need to bring your Eversource account number with you, because if you don't have that, you can't find out if your electricity's back on.
Well, you're supposed to be able to look it up by your address.
Yeah, I put
wasn't able to.
I put my address in.
We had some problems with sometimes it worked great, sometimes it didn't work. It's one of the things in our lessons learned, and we're going to be working with the departments to identify some lessons learned, and then we want to meet with the select board and share those with you and hear other ideas and suggestions that you have. But that was one of our problems at the shelter, that the system that Eversource had in place to, first of all, notify individual people that your power's back on wasn't working properly. They were telling people your power was going to be on at 8 o'clock, and then they'd send another one, it's going to be on, this is on Wednesday, and then they send another one, no, it's not going to be on until Friday. And then they were supposed to have the lookup so people knew when their power, and the system was glitching. It wasn't, maybe it was overwhelmed, it wasn't working properly, and so we had to wind up driving people around to go check their house and see if the power was back on.
Yeah.
Because we weren't sure, because the Eversource
That's what I had to
connection
do.
was a little hard. So there was a lot of that.
And then the other thing was I didn't know how to get my garage door open without electricity, which I learned, but I couldn't look it up
The
or
red
anything.
cord.
I didn't know, but I figured it out. Like, I bet
Yeah,
you pull
no,
this
I had to
thing.
do that, or else we wouldn't have been here Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't get power back till, what, Thursday.
Thursday.
something.
Yeah, I didn't get it back till Thursday.
That was tough, but all these other people too that were doing, working for you and doing all this work, they'd go home at the end of the night to like a freezing cold house
Oh,
too.
God.
And they'd
Yeah.
be back.
Yeah.
And the Code Red system has been revamped on our end as well, which people need to go back in and sign up for.
Which is another thing, good point. So they got the Code Red back up and running, and we used it during the storm. A lot of people that were recently added were dropped.
Yeah.
So
think I'm in it.
people need, if you've, just because you signed up in the past doesn't mean you don't need to sign up again. We're gonna
So
have
if
a
we
major
signed up and we
campaign.
signed up again, will it know it's a duplicate? Because I signed up again. I just don't know if it will.
Yeah,
will
you'll
drop
be
the
fine.
the
Sign
rest.
up
It says
again.
yes.
And if it's the same number, it only goes in once, so.
Okay, so people need to do that. We need to make sure that link is on our
Right.
I'm
page.
gonna put it in the select board spotlight tomorrow.
Okay, great. I think it's important. I mean, these are all things, I think people were starving for information and
Yeah,
they really
that's-
wanted
I
to.
mean, I'm actually curious, if something had happened to me, nobody would have known.
Sophie would have known.
Sophie would have
Sophie
died
would
with
have
me.
done the Lassie
But
thing and gotten help.
I had no phone.
Yeah, the cell
I couldn't
service
get
was
out of the
cut off.
house. It's just, you gotta wonder.
Had no phone.
No, the cell,
Cell phone?
the cell service
This
was,
This is where,
was gone.
That's fine,
neighbor
mine
to
was fine.
neighbor can
Mine
make
was
a
not.
big difference, Liz. In
And
our
my neighbors
neighborhood-
were gone.
in our
because
neighborhood- in
they-
our
They
neighborhood, we
moved, they
have-
left, they went to someplace else.
We have a network of a couple of different neighbors that we keep together. My neighbor across the street from me is going to be 100
Yeah.
on March 7th, and she never left her house.
Happy
She-
birthday to her.
And she was without power.
She,
She had
yeah,
power?
Pat Mulkey,
How many
she
days?
get, not until Thursday.
So 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
And,
How did she
I
stay
had
warm?
had
How did she
to-
stay warm?
Well, fortunately, they had a generator that they brought in that another neighbor, Jeff, who's Fox, who's a firefighter and an electrician, hooked up her heating system to the generator so that she had heat.
Oh, my God. You know, I lived
People
by my
did lovely
gas
things
fire.
for each other. It was really nice to see.
And I,
It
as I
was.
say,
There's no question about it. I was just stunned at the shelter, the number of people that came in that were, I mean, you could see that this was not an easy thing for them to do.
Right. I
And-
think that's where my neighbors went.
Yeah,
But-
folks were
Well, that's why
coming
there was
in.
nobody to check on me.
And
'cause
they,
there was nobody around the
and people
neighborhood.
were incredibly patient.
Yeah.
They were very
They're all
thankful,
older, so.
appreciative. I mean, it was really heartwarming to see folks coming in, being brought in by whether it was the RTA bus or a firefighter, fire department. When we were, Tracy
But if
and I
you don't
were.
have a phone and you don't have a neighbor, I'm just wondering if, I'm not trying to, it's not me squeaky wheel. I'm wondering about people who, like me, and my situation could have been anybody. Do they put a red flag out on their mailbox? But they can't get out their house.
Can't get out. For some people, they just never got out of their house.
Right.
I was told that by several people that if they didn't have the firefighter coming to get them literally out of their
So
home,
how did the firefighter know to go to the house?
they could call them. They
Oh, but
called.
that's
They were
what I
able.
did.
They had access to a phone.
Okay.
But you're right. You've got a point there. What about the people that don't
Yeah,
have the phone?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't have a cell phone. The land.
Or it
or the
was 4
landline.
days. By 4 days, it's gone. It's used up.
No, I think this is why you leave it to the town staff, the emergency response
emergency
people to do.
Yeah.
Well,
sort of
and
a deep dive.
preparing. People
Huh?
need to prepare. You know, like I saw a lot of people, where can I get gas? Where can I get firewood?
Yeah.
You know, I think we learned lessons that sometimes the meteorologists aren't as accurate and sometimes we don't take them as serious as they need to. And, you need to be prepared for situations. You need to have enough food and water and batteries so you can charge your cell phone.
Yeah.
You can get a
Well,
battery
I
pack.
finally figured out, because I have an electric car, that I could charge it off my electric car. So Wednesday night, I went,
Really, you weren't aware of
Hello?
that? You actually figured that out? It took a while to. I'm shocked that I figured you would have known that right off the bat.
I was kind of happy sitting by the fire by myself and until Wednesday. And then Wednesday I went, Jesus, this is starting to get weird.
But if you have no power, you know, that's kind of hard on the old electric cars.
But no, it was all charged up.
It's all charged up, so it's like a battery.
It's a battery.
It's a giant battery.
And yeah, so I was
Power
able
your
to
house.
charge my phone, or
Yep.
could have charged others.
How much, juice could you generate from your car? Could you power your house for a
A
day or
light,
two?
no.
Just a light or two, I see. Yeah, there you go. No, I think
not
it goes back to what Tracy and Joyce were saying about the community.
Yeah.
Taking a village and people coming together. And what's, I
And
think-
registering with somebody.
And what I think is special is it wasn't just in Yarmouth, but like I said, it was replicated literally in every community here on the
Yeah.
Cape. What I heard from people off Cape, all right, was that we have, and the tragedy with Rivoli, right, and the loss of. Think about all of the public safety people that came and responded to Yarmouth when that situation happened, right? So this is the community that we have. We have towns that work together, fire departments that work together, police departments that work together.
Would you believe that a truck from Ohio is who called because I couldn't get through, because Eversource had closed off all the roads. Mayfair was closed, so they were sending us down Fallons Pond Road. And the guys from Ohio had their phone out to try to direct me to my house to get around.
Right.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
But our
That was Dayton,
multi-agency
so it must be that
coordination
way.
center is unique, and that's something very special.
Our
to Cape
mutual
Cod.
aid is very strong. We're
Very strong here, yeah, and it's one of the many things that makes Cape Cod so special. That's the thing that I picked up out of it, because I saw, what Bob talked about here in Yarmouth. You just saw that sort of replicated in community after community, and it's amazing how much of a gung ho attitude in each of the communities existed. People were just stepping up and doing what had to be done, and it's easy to get cynical, particularly when these days when you pay attention to politics. But when it really push comes to shove and a disaster happens,
Yeah, people
people
don't
can
ask.
really step up, and we saw it in abundance here through this storm. So I think there's a lot of good that came out of this.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we live in a society where everything has instant gratification. Everything's at your fingertips. So when something like this happens, people, first they get nervous, understandably. Second, they're cold, right? And then you have all that going
And
into it.
then the pizza won't be delivered? What?
And they get frustrated, and then they, it's hard because they get, our town employees have to reap that,
Deal
and
with
that's
that.
not really fair either. Everybody's doing the best they can, so there's a lot of good that comes out of the community, but sometimes you also see the people that just don't plan and get very frustrated and don't have any patience, and it is frustrating for them. But it's, we need to take a deep breath and
Plan better.
sometimes understand that people are working behind the scenes. You don't see it, you can't see it when you're stuck in your house, but they are working around the clock, and they were, and so, I'm just grateful for that, and I wish everybody was grateful for that, but some people, they just can't see it.
We have a
it
few
might-
crabby people. But
It might be a good idea to, for the communications team to kind of highlight, sending out to folks, what did you learn from this?
That's what I was thinking. I
You
think
know, like,
that would be
what-
great.
We did it when I was the director at Heatherwood. We used to make sure that everyone had an emergency plan available. And I myself just went through it before the storm started. Like you, Joyce, I'm by myself with the dog, and didn't have power until Thursday, I think it was. But I had already stored up on my batteries. I had bread and peanut butter, believe it or not, in the house, but on purpose, because I knew I couldn't open the refrigerator or
Yeah, and even to let people know that they then have to empty everything
take
out.
everything out of that refrigerator.
eggs can't-
Exactly.
can't
Yeah,
be-
everything. Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost my entire
Oh,
refrigerator, but
yeah, me too.
we,
It's
and there
immaculate now,
is,
though.
there is like I think it's MEMA puts out a booklet that you can
There
get.
is.
that-
And I
on
think you
how
can
to-
even claim that on your homeowner's insurance. Somebody I heard got funded back for all their
Nick,
groceries.
and I'm even thinking, you know, we're talking about electrification. If I hadn't had my gas fireplace,
Your what?
my gas fireplace saved me.
Me too.
So I'm kind of
My
like,
husband sells gas fireplaces.
let's get
I
rid
had
of
a wood-
gas. Get rid of gas.
But I had actually gone out and bought wood,
Enough wood.
and I had wood.
Yeah.
And that's what I was using in my house, but my house still got down below 50.
Yeah.
We still have it in the living room next to the gas insert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have gas in my
Lifesaver,
house,
the
but
gas fireplaces.
It was. I'm really thinking about twice now.
Hose was cold. But I was grateful and blessed because I knew
I
there
even
were some
cooked
people
on
that
mine.
didn't even have that.
Chicken on my gas
There you go.
fireplace.
That's good.
oh, you had hot food. No, I literally had peanut butter sandwiches.
Motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Bye.
Night.
Thank you.
We'll continue this fun next week, though. This is
Like
not a
to
long.
see